Chapter 340. In a small courtyard in the city lord's palace, Nie Tian and Tang 13 sat facing each other. Tang 13 came to find Nie Tian to thank him for finding Tang Yuyu for him. However, ever since this guy arrived, he had been laughing foolishly. Tang 13, you didn't sneak out again this time, did you? Nie Tian looked at the laughing Tang 13 and asked. Nie Tian already knew that Tang 13 had gone to the Fengqin Empire's Tang family branch to ask for help. In the end, he was sent back to Sumi Ling City by the Tang family branch and was grounded by Tang Hao. That was why he couldn't find Tang Yuyu. Nie Tian guessed that Tang 13 had snuck out again. Unfortunately, he guessed wrong. Tang 13 was able to leave Sumi Ling City with Tang Hao's permission. Otherwise, forget about Sumi Ling City. He wouldn't even be able to take half a step out of the Tang family's front door. Ah? What did you say? Tang 13 laughed foolishly. He was stunned as if he had just woken up from a dream. Ever since he met Tang Yuyu, he had been in a daze. Nie Tian shook his head speechlessly and asked, "You came from Sumi Ling City?" Sumi Ling City? Tang 13 was stunned again. After a long while, he finally reacted. He suddenly thought of something and recovered a bit. He said, Nie Tian, you have to be careful this time. There are a few abnormal people in Sumi Ling City. If you meet them, you'll be in trouble. How abnormal? Nie Tian smiled slightly. Tang 13 paused and said with a serious face, more abnormal than that Luo Fen you killed. HM? Nie Tian was slightly surprised and asked, "Do you know them?" Among all the people Nie Tian had met, Luo Fen's talent could be considered one of the best. If the person Tang 13 was talking about was stronger than Luo Fen, then it was indeed worth paying attention to. Tang Xiao. Tang 13 said a name and warned Nie Tian with a serious face, "If you run into this person, you must be careful." When Tang 13 said this name, her eyes flashed with uncontrollable anger. At the same time, there was a hint of fear. Tang Xiao? Nie Tian was slightly surprised and asked, "A member of the Tang family?" "Yes." Tang 13 nodded but didn't reveal any more information. Nie Tian frowned and wondered, if Tang Xiao is from the Tang clan, then why is Tang 13 so afraid of him? Is their relationship not good? Nie Tian didn't think too much about it. He wasn't worried about Tang 13. Tang 13's martial arts talent was indeed not bad. Right now, he was already at the first level of the giant spirit realm. Moreover, Nie Tian could feel that his ghost eye was getting stronger and stronger. A few months ago, when he left Blue Cloud City, he was only at the manifestation realm. In just a few months, his strength had almost risen by a whole realm. It was truly terrifying. It looked like Tang 13 really did train hard while she was grounded at home. With the ghost eye, Tang 13 was definitely not a pushover. The next day, the Dragon Blood martial art officially began. When the sky was just beginning to brighten, the martial gathering was already packed with people. The Dragon Blood martial art gathering gathered almost all the young geniuses of the South Mountain region. There were even geniuses from the other 3 regions and the Sumeru spirit capital. It could be said to be a grand gathering of the 3,000 small world. Nie Tian and the others arrived early and went directly to the high platform in the center of the martial field. Standing on the high platform, Nie Tian scanned the area. Although the entire martial field was crowded, it was orderly. The outer ring was the spectator area. The inner ring was the battle area. The outermost ring was guarded by the Dan Wu Imperial Guard and the Deyuan Chamber of Commerce. At this moment, every stage in the martial field was guarded by 3 martial artists, 2 guards and 1 judge. The participating martial artists lined up in front of the stage to receive their battle card. The rules for the following martial competition were simple. It was a negative point elimination system. Winning a match was 0 points. Losing a match or drawing a match was 1 point. If the score was less than 3 points, the person would be directly eliminated. In the entire process of the martial competition, it was useless no matter how many matches you won. If you lost 3 matches, you would be eliminated. This method of battle was very fair to all the participating martial artists. It was to avoid the early elimination of powerful martial artists when they met each other. Of course, these were the rules of the early stage. After the top 100 were decided, the rules would change. There were about 3,000 people left in the Dragon Blood martial art gathering. These 3,000 people were all at least the 5th level of the Wanxiang realm. Those who could fight their way into the top 100 were definitely powerful martial artists. Seeing that it was almost time, Nie Tian informed Qiushan and the others of his plans and went to collect his duel token. Apart from Nie Tian, Rui Qianyu, Aoki Yuri, Ding Yifan, Tong Fu, Tang 13, Tang Yuyu, Duanmu Lu, Duanmu Weiner, and the others would also participate in the martial competition. Because the 3 lay brothers had not fully recovered from their injuries, Elder Li did not allow them to participate. Several people received their battle cards at different arenas to avoid a situation where they would kill each other later. Number 14. After receiving his battle card, Nie Tian waited quietly at the side of the arena. The other martial artists recognized him and pointed at him while discussing, seeming to be very respectful. Nie Tian was not worried about the strength of Rui Qianyu and the others. If nothing unexpected happened, they should be able to fight their way into the top 100. After a while, all the participating martial artists received their battle card. The real battle was about to begin. At this time, Nie Tian spread out his divine sense and sensed the surrounding crowd. The corners of his mouth curled up slightly as he thought to himself, as expected, there are many experts hidden in the periphery. The Dragon Blood martial art gathering had attracted many geniuses to participate. There were even people from the other 3 regions and the Sumeru spirit capital. These people were mostly geniuses from their families and sections. They definitely would not come alone. There must be people secretly protecting them. Just now, when Nie Tian spread out his divine sense, he had already discovered many experts. It was just that he didn't know if these fellows hiding in the crowd would make a move when the genius disciples met and fought to the death with each other. After a while, Gu Yi announced the start of the Dragon Blood martial art, causing the entire audience to be thunderous. When the entire audience calmed down, the referees of the various arenas walked up to the stage and drew lots to determine the order of the battles. In the first round, every participating martial artist would face 3 battles. If they lost all 3 battles, they would be directly eliminated. Nie Tian estimated that after the first round, he should be able to eliminate a third of the participants. First match on the 7th stage, number 14 versus number 99. A cold voice sounded out. The referee of the 7th stage drew out 2 numbers and directly announced the start of the first round. I'm actually the first one on stage. I'm a little lucky. Nie Tian looked at the battle card in his hand. It was number 14. The corner of his mouth curled up as he sighed in his heart. Number 99, I wonder which unlucky fellow is it. To meet Nie Tian in the first round, this number 99 was indeed unlucky. Number 14, get out here and die. Just as the referee of stage 7 walked down the stage, a figure immediately rushed up, and with a deep and furious roar, a pair of sinister eyes swept across the crowd, with an extremely domineering attitude. The appearance of this person immediately caused the surrounding people to discuss. Who is this person? How arrogant! You don't even know him. He's the 3rd prince of the Fengqin Empire. I heard that he's even on the southern mountain region's genius ranking. He seems to be ranked 37th. So he's a prince. No wonder he's so arrogant. Hearing the discussion, Nie Tian couldn't help but be slightly startled. He raised his head to look at the face on the stage and couldn't help but twitch his mouth. At this moment, the person standing on the stage was no stranger to Nie Tian. Furthermore, he was very familiar with him. It was actually the Fengqin Empire's Feng Wuk. Before Nie Tian came to the Heaven Luo city, Feng Wuck had once barged into the Jin residence, and even allowed his subordinates to kill one of the Jin residence's guards. Later on, 3 of his subordinates were killed by Qiushan. Even he himself almost died in Qiushan's hands. Nie Tian had almost forgotten about this guy. He didn't expect to actually meet him at the Dragon Blood Martial meet. What a surprise! Nie Tian lightly tapped his feet and appeared on the stage. However, his back was facing Feng Wuck. He didn't waste any time and said indifferently, "Make your move." And Feng Wuck was slightly startled. He felt that the figure and voice in front of him were somewhat familiar, but he couldn't recall who it was. "Why, you don't dare to make your move?" Nie Tian spoke again. His tone was filled with dense mockery. On the high stage, Gu Yi and the others were all paying attention to Nie Tian's battle. Big Brother Gu, City Lord Nie Tian, is only at the first level of the Giant Spirit Realm. His opponent is also at the first level of the Giant Spirit Realm. Isn't he a little too confident by having his back facing his opponent? The Dan Martial Hall's 7th commander, Zhao Kuo, spoke in a loud voice. Everyone on the surrounding platforms could hear him. Too confident? Gu Yi had a disapproving expression as he chuckled. "Brother, don't be anxious. Let's wait and see." Lu Liangkai, who was standing at the side, also frowned slightly. He felt that Nie Tian was a little too arrogant. "Stinking brat, you're courting death." On the number 7 stage, Feng Wuck's eyes were emitting anger. He had never suffered such humiliation before. He was instantly enraged as he let out a shout and struck out with his palm. Not only was Nie Tian's back facing him, but he was also mocking him. This was intolerable for Feng Wuck. When Feng Wuck struck out with his palm, a giant palm shadow instantly appeared in the air. It almost covered the entire stage and pressed towards Nie Tian. Nie Tian stood at the same spot and didn't move an inch. He was like a firm boulder in the midst of a violent storm. When the rolling chi wave was 1 meter away from his body, Nie Tian's body suddenly trembled. Instantly, a chilling sword light gushed out. The moment the sword light appeared, a terrifying sword chi surged out and directly shattered Feng Wuck's giant palm shadow. PFFF. In the next moment, Feng Wuck didn't even have the time to react before he suddenly felt a sharp pain in his chest. His entire body was like a kite that had its string cut as it flew off the arena and smashed onto the ground, causing a cloud of bloody dust to rise. After Feng Wuck landed on the ground, he got up and suddenly felt something was wrong. In the next moment, he cried out miserably, "Ah! My essence meridians! You crippled my essence meridians!" Chapter 341. After Nie Tian finished speaking, he leaped off the stage and did not look at Feng Wuck again. Feng Wuck stared at Nie Tian in a daze. He finally understood why the figure and voice in front of him were so familiar. Unfortunately, it was too late. Only when Nie Tian walked down from the arena did the surrounding spectators slowly heave a sigh of relief. Isn't the Nie Tian City Lord too scary? He actually crippled Feng Wuck. Yeah. The Nie Tian City Lord didn't even draw his sword. He didn't even use a single move and Feng Wuck was crippled. This is too ridiculous. I can't understand it at all. Sword aura. The Nie Tian City Lord defeated Feng Wuck with pure sword aura. He is simply a sword god. Everyone discussed animatedly, praising Nie Tian to the heavens. Big Brother Nie Tian is so amazing. On the stage, Nie Yuro pulled Qiu Ling and shouted excitedly. She was so happy that she was about to jump up and down. With a chuckle, Gu Yi glanced at Zhao Kuo, who was standing beside him, and said with a smile, "Brother Zhao, do you still think City Lord Nie Tian is overconfident?" Zhao Kuo gulped, and the surprise in his heart was written all over his face. Both of them are obviously at the first level of the giant spirit warrior. Why is there such a huge difference in combat power? Lu Liangkai took a deep breath and said, "The strength of the Nie Tian City Lord cannot be estimated by ordinary warriors. If I didn't see it with my own eyes, I wouldn't believe it either. A warrior at the first level of the giant spirit warrior actually crippled an opponent of the same level with just sword aura. It's really unbelievable. Zhao Kuo and Lu Liangkai were both warriors at the spirit wheel realm. When they met Nie Tian previously, they had already heard many rumors about him. However, those rumors were too bizarre and ordinary people wouldn't believe them. Especially the news of Nie Tian killing Luo Fun and defeating Gu Qilin with one move. Although the news was widely spread, not many people really believed it. Lu Liangkai had always felt that Nie Tian's battle prowess was about the same as Ding Yifun's. At most, he would be on par with Aoki Lily. But now it seemed that he was completely wrong. Judging from the sword chi that Nie Tian had just released, he definitely had the ability to kill Ding Yifun or Aokiki Lily with a single strike. Elder Li and Duanmu Bai were sitting not far away. They looked calm on the surface, but their hearts were in turmoil. Duanmu Bai couldn't help but ask Elder Li, based on your estimation, what is the current combat strength of the Nie Tian City Lord? He thought that the people around Old Li and Nie Tian would have a clearer understanding of his battle prowess. Elder Li took a deep breath and shook his head. I can't tell. You can't tell. Duanmu Bai was stunned. He didn't expect Elder Li to give such an answer. Elder Li didn't lie. He really couldn't tell what Nie Tian's limit was. He had seen Nie Tian defeat Luo Fun in the blink of an eye with his own eyes. He even withstood the combined attack of 2 level 5 true element warriors. Elder Li had a speculation about Nie Tian that even he himself felt was unrealistic. Perhaps his true combat strength was comparable to a level 9 true element warrior, or even a spirit wheel warrior. However, this speculation only existed in Elder Li's heart. He definitely couldn't say it out loud. A level 1 giant spirit warrior had the ability to fight against a spirit wheel warrior. If this were to spread, people would definitely think that Elder Li was crazy. In fact, Nie Tian didn't know where his limit was. His biggest trump card was the 3 seals of the God of War. However, he still had the raw star stone in his body. It seemed that the power of the stars could protect him in times of danger. Moreover, Nie Tian had a vague feeling that he would soon be able to mobilize the star totem on the raw star stone. The star totem, perhaps this was Nie Tian's final trump card. With Nie Tian's strength, he could easily kill Feng Wuk. However, considering that this was the first battle of the Dragon Blood Martial Meet, if he killed Feng Wuk directly, it would be the beginning of a bloody battle. Therefore, he only crippled Feng Wuk's Yuan Meridian and didn't take his life. Just as Nie Tian was waiting for the next battle, a tragic cry came from the arena not far away. A figure fell off the arena. His whole body was covered in blood, and there wasn't a single piece of skin that was unharmed. Nie Tian looked over and couldn't help but frown. With one glance, he could tell that the person's whole body was injured by the sharp sword chi. Oh no! In the next moment, Nie Tian suddenly felt that something was wrong. His heart sank. Bang! With a loud explosion, the person actually exploded. The air was filled with blood and flesh. It was extremely tragic. What a vicious method! Nie Tian raised his head and locked his gaze on the person on the arena. This person had used sword chi to invade his opponent's body. His opponent's body couldn't withstand the surging sword chi and directly exploded. Such a method of killing was truly bloody. On the arena, the person that Nie Tian had locked onto was a martial artist wearing a wolf mask. He immediately noticed Nie Tian. A pair of cold eyes flickered, and dense killing intent flashed. It's him. Nie Tian immediately recognized that this person wearing the wolf mask was actually the assassin that sneak attacked him in the Heaven Luo Mountain. Nie Tian had never imagined that the other party would dare to so brazenly appear on the Dragon Blood Martial Meet. This person's aura had changed greatly compared to a few days ago. Clearly, he had consumed something that could change his aura. But his sword chi couldn't be changed. With Nie Tian's comprehension of the sword Dao, he could sense it immediately. Nie Tian was very sure that the person in front of him was an assassin from the Ling Xian Heaven Pavilion. But at this moment it was not good to act rashly. If others were to know that there was an assassin from the Ling Xian Heaven Pavilion at the Dragon Blood Martial Meet, it would definitely cause a commotion. The deterrent power of the Ling Xian Heaven Pavilion's name was sufficiently strong. Since you want to kill me so much, then come. Nie Tian looked at the wolf assassin from afar, not concealing the killing intent in his eyes. The other party was a top-notch assassin. Instantly sensing Nie Tian's killing intent, he actually smiled slightly, extremely provocative. He jumped down from the arena. The surrounding crowd subconsciously retreated, revealing great fear. Die! Right at this moment, a low shout came from another arena. Swish! Mr. Z's finger lightly tapped. A purple line of fire appeared, instantly transforming into a fire dragon that flew past. Boom! The fire dragon swooped past. The opposing martial artist didn't even have the chance to scream, directly turning into a pile of black bones. This tragic scene caused the surrounding martial artists to be stunned, their faces turning as white as paper. Nie Tian's gaze also turned over. Seeing the purple flames on the arena, his face involuntarily darkened. Mr. Z, however, acted as if he did not see Nie Tian, and directly walked down the arena. The appearance of the wolf assassin and Mr. Z caused Nie Tian's heart to involuntarily have a layer of worry. If the other martial artists learned from these two, the Dragon Blood Martial Meet would definitely evolve into a massacre martial meet. A massacre martial meet, this was not something that Nie Tian was willing to see. I'll destroy you. Just as Nie Tian was still thinking, a ruthless roar came from the arena not far away. On one of the arenas, Gu Qilin struck out with his sword. A huge sword image surged out like a huge wave, and directly sent the opposing martial artist flying. Ah! The martial artist let out a blood-curdling scream in the air. After landing, his body twitched a few times, and there was no more movement. F***ck. Another one. Seeing this scene, Nie Tian angrily cursed. Originally, he was still worried about the wolf assassin and Mr. Z, who knew that another Gu Qilin would appear. These three people, one was more brutal than the other. Their attacks were ruthless and decisive, leaving no room for mercy. They directly wanted to take someone's life. If a martial artist with some strength was able to block one of their attacks, he still had a chance to admit defeat. If his strength was insufficient, he would only be killed in one move. At this time, Gu Qilin's gaze drifted over, and he gritted his teeth as he shouted Nie Tian's name, Nie Tian. Now, almost everyone knew that he had been defeated by Nie Tian in one move, so his hatred for Nie Tian had reached its peak. At this moment, Gu Qilin's goal in participating in the Dragon Blood Martial Meet was no longer the Dragon Blood Stone or fame, but to kill Nie Tian. Nie Tian looked at Gu Qilin's murderous gaze and roared in his heart, "Bastard! If I had known it would be like this, I would have killed you that day." If Nie Tian had known that Gu Qilin was so ruthless and bloodthirsty, he would have killed him the last time. Leaving him with his worthless life had instead brought harm to him. The sudden appearance of the wolf assassin, Mr. Z, and Gu Qilin, these three killing gods, immediately filled the entire arena with a strange atmosphere. The appearance of these three killing gods caused all the participating martial artists to feel insecure. Nie Tian had a helpless look on his face. He also had no choice. He could not possibly go up and tear these three fellows apart. The strength of the wolf assassin, Mr. Z, and Gu Qilin could not be underestimated. He could only let the participating martial artists pray for their own luck. Following that, Nie Tian easily obtained 2 victories. In the first round of the competition, he won all 3 matches. After more than an hour, the first round of the competition quickly ended. The judges and guards on the arena immediately expelled the eliminated martial artists from the arena. After one round, There were less than 500 people left out of the 3,000 participants. The wolf assassin, Mr. Z, and Gu Chilin were too cruel. Every time someone fought with them, they would either directly admit defeat or be killed in one blow. It was precisely because of the existence of these three that many martial artists directly gave up on the competition. Although the dragon blood stone was tempting, one had to be alive to enjoy it. A moment later, the second round of the competition began. At this time, a battle on a nearby arena attracted Nie Tian's attention. On the arena, two figures stood facing each other. One of them was very familiar to Nie Tian. It was his newly accepted disciple, Duanmu Lu. The other person was an unfamiliar face. It was a handsome youth who looked to be around 20 years old, but his strength was extremely terrifying. He was actually at the 9th level of the giant spirit realm. A 20-year-old with the strength of the 9th level of the giant spirit realm. In the South Mountain region, this kind of talent was absolutely outstanding. Duanmu Lu looked at the other party and sensed that the opponent's strength was not ordinary. His expression immediately became serious, and he solemnly cupped his hands and said, "I am Qiankuan Palace, Duanmu Lu." The person cupped his hands and returned the greeting, saying in a clear voice, "Battle Cloud Sect, Zhan Xiaoi." Battle Cloud Sect. When Duanmu Lu heard these three words, his expression suddenly changed. He said in surprise, "You are from the North Sea region?" Chapter 342. On the high platform, Duanmu Bai's face suddenly darkened. He was stunned. Gu Yi, elderly Zhao Kuo, and Lu Liangkai were also nervous. They were obviously shocked. Battle Cloud Sect was the #1 sect in the North Sea region, one of the 3,000 small world. The North Sea region was different from the Nanshan region. The Nanshan region was dominated by the God Transformation sect and the Qiankuan Palace, but the North Sea region was dominated by the Battle Cloud sect. Therefore, the Battle Cloud sect was stronger than the God Transformation sect and the Qiankuan Palace. It was even comparable to the four great families. Because of this, Duanmu Bai and the others were so surprised when they heard the name Battle Cloud sect. After a long time, Duanmu Bai suddenly thought of something. A look of panic appeared on his face. He asked nervously, "Elder Li, what did that person say his name was?" Elder Li's face was a little stiff. He frowned and said, "I think it's Zhan Xiaoi. I heard that the son of the Battle Cloud sect's sect master is also called Zhan." Zhan Xiaoi. Before Elder Li could finish, Duanmu Bai exclaimed. The surprise in his heart reached its peak. He said in astonishment, "The son of the Battle Cloud sect's sect master, the #1 genius of the Battle Cloud sect in 1,000 years, Zhan Xiaoi. Zhan Xiaoi, the #1 genius of the Battle Cloud sect." On the other side, Gu Yi also reacted. He said with a shocked expression, "I didn't expect him to come too." Zhan Xiaoi was not only famous in the North Sea region, but also in the 3,000 small world. He was known as the #1 genius of the Battle Cloud sect in 1,000 years. He was the top of the North Sea region genius list. Although his strength was only at the 9th level of the giant spirit, his true combat strength surpassed the average 1st level of the true energy realm. On the battleground, Nie Tian looked at Zhan Xiaoi on the arena, not far away. He frowned and said in his heart, "This Zhan Xiaoi is a little strong. I'm afraid Duanmu Lu is not his match." Duanmu Lu was now at the 4th level of the giant spirit realm. The sword seal of the 8 extremities Kunwu primordial spirit had already been opened. His sword Dao realm had also reached the sword heart realm. Coupled with the ultimate 9 extremes sword art that Nie Tian had given him, his overall combat strength was definitely comparable to that of an ordinary 8th or 9th level giant spirit realm martial artist. But this Zhan Xiaoi in front of him was clearly not an ordinary martial artist, but a rare genius. Nie Tian had a feeling that Zhan Xiaoi was hiding a terrifying power that even he couldn't see through. On the arena, Duanmu Lu looked at Zhan Xiaoi in shock, and his expression gradually became nervous. He had heard of the Battle Cloud sect, but he had never heard of Zhang Xiaoyi, so he did not know the true strength of the latter. You are no match for me. Suddenly, Zhang Xiaoyi's expression was indifferent and cold. His eyes were very calm, without any ripples, because he was merely stating a fact. He had long sensed that Duanmulu was only at the 4th level giant spirit realm. With this strength, he was confident that he could defeat his opponent in a single move. I want to give it a try. Duanmulu saw that the other party's eyes were calm, and there was no disdain in them, so he made up his mind and said firmly, All right. Zhang Xiaoyi nodded slightly and said, I'll grant you your wish. As soon as he finished speaking, Zhang Xiaoyi's figure moved immediately, and he threw a straight punch without any unnecessary movements. Boom! Instantly, a huge shadow of a fist rolled out in the air, striking towards Duanmulu. Seeing this scene, Nie Tian's brows tightened and he thought to himself, this person's strength is so strange, but he didn't use any essence force. That's right. Zhang Xiaoyi's punch just now did not use any essence force at all. It was just a straight punch, purely relying on the external release of his physical strength. To be able to condense such a huge fist shadow, the strength of his physical body was truly rare. Nie Tian estimated that the strength of Zhang Xiaoyi's punch was at least around 25 million kilograms, which was the strength of half a dragon. And with the power of 640,000 stars awakened in Nie Tian's body, under the situation where he did not use any martial skills, he could only exert that much strength. The strength of Zhang Xiaoyi's martial body was really beyond Nie Tian's imagination. Facing Zhang Xiaoyi's punch, Duanmulu's nerves tightened, and the 8 extremities Kunwu sword appeared in his hand. 1. The heavy body of the 8 extremities Kunwu sword let out a deep sword hum, and a majestic sword chi surged out. The sword chi of an ordinary swordsman usually won by its sharpness, but Duanmulu's 8 extremities sword chi went against this principle, and it was known for its majesty. Bam! In the next moment, the shadow of the fist and the sword chi clashed directly, and after a deep muffled sound, waves of air gushed out. Duanmulu took a few steps back, and suddenly felt his chest sink. A mouthful of fresh blood spurted out. On the other hand, Zhang Xiaoyi was like a huge rock in the raging waves, not moving an inch. After repelling Duanmulu with a punch, Zhang Xiaoyi's face was not filled with joy, but surprise. He hadn't expected Duanmulu to be able to block his punch. The force of this punch looked ordinary at first glance, but the power contained within it was enough to severely injure an ordinary 9th-level giant spirit martial artist. However, Duanmulu only spat out a mouthful of blood, and clearly did not suffer any serious injuries. This made Zhang Xiaoyi feel incredulous. On the high platform, Duanmu revealed a surprised expression as well, and he wiped off the beads of sweat on his forehead after a short while before he suddenly smiled and chuckled. My son actually blocked this punch. He also did not expect his son to be able to block Zhang Xiaoyi's punch. The strength of Zhang Xiaoyi's punch is extremely terrifying. To think that young Master Duanmu could actually withstand it, and not suffer any serious injuries. This courage and strength is astonishing. Beside him, Old Li could not help but praise. Gu Yi, Zhao Kuo, Lu Liangkai, and the rest also widened their eyes, expressing their astonishment at Duanmulu's performance. On the other hand, on the dojo, Nie Tian was not the least bit surprised, and only nodded slightly. If Duanmulu, who possessed the 8 Supreme Sword Seal, was defeated by Zhang Xiaoyi with a single punch, then that would be shocking to him. Other than Nie Tian, no one knew how powerful the 8 Supreme Sword Seal was. The 8 Supreme Sword Seal was a sword seal that was even more powerful than the limitless sword Sage Mo Qianjuan's Great Heavenly Sword Seal and the Western Sword Sovereign Jiu Qianqing's Ghost Scar Demon Seal. Even if it was just activated, the increase in Duanmulu's strength was definitely not to be underestimated. The limitless sword Sage Mo Qianjun and the Western sword Sovereign Jiu Qianqing were both at the pinnacle of sword Dao in the Heaven Realm, and Duanmu Lu's future achievements were extremely likely to surpass them, or at least be on par with them. Duanmu Lu, Zhang Xiaoyi is not a bad opponent. Let's see how strong you are now. Nie Tian smiled slightly, looking forward to Duanmu Lu's next performance. Zhang Xiaoyi was known as the #1 genius of the Battle Cloud sect in 1,000 years. Nie Tian also wanted to see how strong such a person was. Very good. After his punch was blocked by Duanmu Lu, Zhang Xiaoyi actually laughed and said, "Let's go again." Alright. Duanmu Lu's fighting spirit was aroused. With a long roar, the 8 Supreme Kunwu formed the giant spirit true body, and the huge sword almost covered the entire arena. Ultimate 9 Extremes, First Style, Dark Cloud Waning Moon. As Duanmu Lu's voice fell, the 8 Supreme Kunwu actually condensed a ball of black sword chi, and together with the power of the 8 Supreme Sword Seal, the sudden release of momentum was like a black cloud pressing down on a city. Good move. Zhang Xiaoyi laughed, and still did not use any elemental force. He punched out with both fists and roared, "Overlord carries the cauldron." Boom. The 8 Supreme Kunwu landed, and with a bang, the entire arena shook. With a crack, a deep crack appeared. Zhang Xiaoyi used his super strong martial body to forcefully take the fatal blow of the 8 Supreme Kunwu, and was actually unharmed. Seeing this scene, the surrounding martial artists were all stunned. Could it be that Zhang Xiaoyi's body was made of steel? Everyone on the high platform was also stunned by what they saw. Duanmu Bai, Old Li Gui, Zhao Kuo, Lu Liangkai, these people were all strong martial artists, and of course they could see the clues. Zhang Xiaoyi could achieve such terrifying power with just his physical body without using any elemental force. It was really unbelievable. The title of the #1 genius of the Battle Cloud sect in 1,000 years was definitely not empty words. Take another sword of mine. On the arena, Duanmu Lu roared, and he made up his mind to force the other party to use his elemental force. Ultimate 9 Extremes, Second Style, Frost Life. The 8 Supreme Kunwu pressed down from the sky, and the billowing sword chi seemed to contain endless coldness. This time, Duanmu Lu's aura was twice as strong. Overlord kills. Sensing the powerful aura above his head, Zhang Xiaoyi frowned slightly, and then immediately struck out with his palm, and the cold aura of the city shot up to the sky. There was another fierce collision in the air, and the 8 Supreme Kunwu once again let out an intense sword cry. This time, Zhang Xiaoyi was actually forced to take a step back. This subtle movement made Duanmu Lu ecstatic, and he said with a smile, "Brother Zhang, you have to be careful." Duanmu Lu was happy, but Duanmu Bai, who was on the high platform, was even happier than him, and he almost jumped up in excitement. He never thought that Duanmu Lu's strength would actually improve so quickly in such a short time. Everyone was stunned. They didn't think that the battle between Duanmu Lu and Zhang Xiaoyi would actually be so exciting. It was really an unexpected surprise. Nie Tian, who was on the arena, also revealed a satisfied smile at this moment. It had to be said that Duanmu Lu's talent in Sword Dao was really terrifying. In just 2 days, he actually cultivated the Ultimate 9 Extremes sword technique to the second style. This had already exceeded Nie Tian's expectations, and from the way he attacked, he already had a very strong control over the 8 Supreme Sword Seal, and he could faintly use the power of the Sword Chi within the 8 Supreme Sword Seal. This kind of Sword Dao comprehension ability was really terrifying, and it was absolutely amazing. But at the same time, Nie Tian was also surprised by Zhang Xiaoyi's strength. He could actually use his physical body to resist the attack of the 8 Supreme Kunwu Giant spiritual body head-on. The strength of his martial body was unique among those of the same age. Nie Tian knew that Zhang Xiaoyi didn't use his true strength at all. Otherwise, Duanmu Lu definitely wouldn't have been able to last until now. At this moment, Duanmu Lu's voice sounded again. Ultimate 9 Extremes, Third Style, Absolute Evil Wind. With a loud shout, Duanmu Lu's entire body's essence energy surged and instantly condensed on the 8th Supreme Kunwu sword. The surging sword chi that was like a river bursting through a dam filled the surrounding space of 100 meters. The next moment, the huge body of the 8th Supreme Kunwu sword slashed down with a thunderous force, pressing down on Zhan Xiaoyi. Chapter 343. 8 Extremities Kunwu. The body of the sword was huge and the sword aura was heavy. Though it was as heavy as a mountain, in Duanmu Lu's hands, it was like a dragon breaking out of the abyss, swift and murderous. When Duanmu Lu's sword slashed down, Nie Tian was stunned. He had underestimated this disciple of his. Originally, Nie Tian thought that Duanmu Lu's talent in the way of the sword was already extraordinary for him to be able to comprehend the first 2 sword forms of the Ultimate 9 Extremes sword technique in 2 days. Who would have thought that Duanmu Lu would actually use the 3rd form of the Ultimate 9 Extremes sword technique? Absolute Evil Wind. Ultimate 9 Extremes sword technique was a heaven-class high-level sword technique. The higher the level of the sword technique, the more difficult it was to cultivate and the higher the requirement for talent in the way of the sword. To be able to comprehend 3 sword forms of the Ultimate 9 Extremes sword technique in 2 days, the word extraordinary was not enough to describe such talent. Could be said to be the best in the world. In any case, among all the swordsmen that Nie Tian had met, in this life and in the past, in the heavens and on the earth, there was no one who could be on par with Duanmu Lu. Even Nie Tian himself felt a little ashamed of his own inferiority. However, Nie Tian was the only one who did not have the innate sword seal out of the 5 great swordsmen in the heaven realm. Even his original spirit was not a sword spirit. Under such circumstances, to be able to be on par with the other 4 was already an astonishing feat. Zhan Xiaoyi suddenly raised his head and felt that Duanmu Lu's attack was powerful and piercingly cold. It was actually more than twice as powerful as the previous attack, and he couldn't help but frown as a solemn expression appeared on his face. At this moment, he realized that he had underestimated Duanmu Lu. If he did not show his true abilities in this battle, he was afraid that something might really go wrong. At the thought of this, Zhan Xiaoyi did not panic in the slightest. Instead, the corners of her lips curled up slightly as she said loudly, "Duanmu Lu of the Cosmic Palace, you are an opponent worthy of respect. In that case, let me show you my true strength." As soon as he finished speaking, Zhan Xiaoyi's body shook and a layer of golden light gushed out from his body. Boom! In the next moment, the halo suddenly expanded and condensed into a 20-meter tall golden giant around his body. Battle Cloud Tyrant Body, Battle Cloud Armor. Open! Zhan Xiaoyi laughed and shouted. The golden giant around him was actually covered in a dark golden battle armor. It looked like pieces of golden dragon scales, looking extremely domineering and powerful. The onlookers were completely dumbfounded by this scene. Oh my god, just who is this Zhan Xiaoyi? Why is he so strong? What kind of martial technique is this? Why does it give me a feeling of suffocation and tightness in my chest? No, I'm going to vomit blood. The giant golden armor is too terrifying. I'm afraid Duanmu Lu is in danger. Everyone was discussing among themselves. At the same time, everyone on the stage stood up and focused their shocked gazes on Zhan Xiaoyi. This is the legendary. Duanmu Bai's face turned pale, and his voice started to tremble. He couldn't even form a coherent sentence. The Battle Cloud Sex Zhan Clan's bloodline heaven and earth spiritual body, Battle Cloud Tyrant Body. Elder Li's face was also blank as he finished what Duanmu Bai wanted to say. F***CK. F***CK. Battle Cloud Tyrant Body. It really is the Battle Cloud Tyrant Body. Gu Yi gulped down his saliva as his old face was filled with shock. Battle Cloud Tyrant Body, the legendary Earth Rank Heaven and Earth Spiritual Body. Dan Wu Hall's 7th Commander Zhao Kuo and Yuan Merchant Association's Vice President Lu Liangkai exclaimed at the same time. On the martial field, Nie Tian's brows were tightly knitted, almost squeezing out the word Chuan. He didn't expect that Zhang Xiaoyi was actually an Earth-rank heaven and earth spiritual body. No wonder his physical body was so strong. Under the situation where he didn't use essence force, he could punch out with half a dragon force and even resist the attack of 8 extremities Kunwu. He actually possessed an Earth-rank heaven and earth spiritual body. Heaven and earth spiritual body. Of course, Nie Tian knew how terrifying the heaven and earth spiritual body was. When martial artists cultivated, they mainly cultivated their physical body and primordial spirit. Martial artists with innate spiritual body had a strong martial body that far surpassed ordinary martial artists. Their cultivation speed was also far superior to ordinary martial artists. Their martial Dao achievements would normally not be low. However, this wasn't the main point. What was more terrifying was that when the heaven and earth spiritual body grew to a certain extent, it could activate innate abilities. Innate abilities were more suitable for martial artists than any other martial technique. Once it was executed, the power would be abnormally terrifying. At this moment, the battle cloud armor that Zhang Xiaoyi executed was the innate ability of the battle cloud tyrant body. Martial artists with heaven and earth spiritual bodies were very rare, 1 in a million. When he was in Blue Cloud City, Nie Tian once encountered a heaven and earth spiritual body, Ling Tian. He even saved that fellow's life from the hands of Lan Binji. However, Ling Tian's lotus flower spiritual body was only the lowest yellow rank heaven and earth spiritual body. Compared to Zhang Xiaoyi's battle cloud tyrant body, it was worlds apart. The spiritual body of heaven and earth was the same as the martial arts and martial skills. It was divided into 4 ranks: heaven, earth, profound, yellow, high, intermediate, and low. Ling Tian's lotus flower innate physique was only the lowest grade of heaven and earth physique. It was completely incomparable to Zhang Xiaoyi's battle cloud tyrant physique. The difference between the two could be said to be like the difference between heaven and earth. Nie Tian reckoned that Zhang Xiaoyi's battle cloud tyrant body was definitely above earth grade. It might even be a high-grade earth-grade heaven and earth spirit body. Earth rank high-grade heaven spirit body. A martial artist with this level of heaven spirit body, even if his martial Dao talent was trash, he could still easily become a heavenly emperor realm martial artist. Duanmu Lu, my good disciple, you're going to lose. Nie Tian shook his head slightly, but there was a faint smile on his lips. Duanmu Lu's defeat at the hands of Zhang Xiaoyi was indeed not an injustice. Moreover, Duanmu Lu had just activated the 8 Extremes sword seal, so he must be bursting with confidence and might be boastful. If he lost this time, with his tenacious temperament, he would definitely become even more determined in his martial arts heart. It would definitely not be a bad thing for his future growth. Bam! On the arena, the 8 Extremes Kunwu sword smashed down like a mountain. With a loud bang, it slammed on Zhang Xiaoyi's battle cloud armor. It immediately stirred up a tyrannical airwave that surged out like a sharp blade in the wind, forcing the surrounding martial artists to retreat. Although the one who took the initiative to attack was Duanmu Lu, the 8 Extremes Kunwu sword was unable to cause any damage to the battle cloud armor. Instead, it suffered a huge impact. The next moment, Duanmu Lu was directly sent flying. Duanmu Lu landed on the arena and took a few steps back. He actually couldn't stabilize himself. He staggered and immediately spat out a mouthful of blood. Boom! Almost at the same moment, the arena under Zhang Xiaoyi's feet suddenly collapsed with a loud bang. Zhang Xiaoyi landed steadily on the ground. His body was steady and didn't move at all. Everyone looked at the scene in front of them as if they had seen a ghost. The shock in their hearts was all revealed on their faces. The arena with a radius of 60 to 70 meters actually collapsed. The combat strength of the two was really terrifying. Everyone on the high platform was also dumbfounded, especially Gu Yi, who was speechless for a long time. He knew that the arena was made of huge stones and reinforced by a first-tier spiritual formation. Yet, it actually couldn't withstand the impact. The strength of Duanmu Lu and Zhan Xiaoyi was indeed formidable. Below the arena, Duanmu Lu immediately stood up and wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth. Although he looked a little disappointed, the determination in his eyes was still there. He cupped his hands at Zhan Xiaoyi and said, "Brother Zhan, thank you for showing mercy." Duanmu Lu wasn't a fool. Of course, he could sense the terror of Zhan Xiaoyi's battle cloud overlord body. If the latter hadn't shown mercy, it would be very difficult for him to stand up now. His life might even be in danger. "Duanmu Lu, I've said before that you're an opponent worthy of respect." Zhan Xiaoyi nodded slightly. As if she thought of something, she said solemnly, "Your talent and strength are definitely the best among all the people I've met. If you're given another 5 years, I won't be your match." At this moment, Duanmu Lu was 15 years old while Zhan Xiaoyi was 20. The age difference between the two wasn't too big, but it wasn't too small either. For a martial artist, 5 years was nothing compared to a lifespan of hundreds of years. However, Duanmu Lu was in the best period for his strength to soar. If he was given another 5 years, his strength would definitely reach the true energy realm or even the spirit wheel realm. Moreover, his sword Dao level would also improve by leaps and bounds. Not to mention 5 years, even if it was just 1 year, Duanmu Lu was confident that he could fight Zhan Xiaoyi for 300 rounds. Duanmu Lu smiled and didn't find any excuses. Instead, he said, "Brother Zhan, you're exaggerating. I, Duanmu Lu, am not someone who can't afford to lose. A loss is a loss. I don't need to comfort myself with any excuses." "Very good." Zhan Xiaoyi revealed a rare smile and said, "Duanmu Lu, I look forward to our next battle." "Good." Duanmu Lu nodded heavily and said, "If there's a chance, I will definitely fight with Brother Zhan again." At this moment, everyone's eyes were focused on the two of them. And among them, there were a few gazes that were cold and heavy, with hidden murderous intent. Tang Xiao, Qiu Shaokong, Gu Qulin, Mo Shi, Mr. Z, Lone Wolf Killer, and some other powerful martial artists all noticed Zhan Xiaoyi and Duanmu Lu. But they focused more on Zhan Xiaoyi. After all, he was the winner. Zhan Xiaoyi's appearance made these people feel threatened. Rui Qianyu, Tong Fu, and the rest also looked at Zhan Xiaoyi in a new light. Nie Tian was the only one who didn't take it seriously. Although Zhan Xiaoyi was strong, it wasn't enough to make Nie Tian wary. Nie Tian estimated that Zhan Xiaoyi's combat ability should be slightly stronger than Gu Qulin's. If he met Tong Fu, the outcome would be uncertain. Tong Fu now had the strength of level 1 true element. The key was that his hammer of destruction was ferocious and domineering, which happened to counter a martial artist with a strong martial body like Zhan Xiaoyi. At this moment, Nie Tian walked over. "Teacher, I lost." Seeing Nie Tian walk over, Duanmu Lu bowed slightly. He was very respectful and even a little guilty. A loss is a loss. It's no big deal. Nie Tian smiled faintly, and then his gaze fell on Zhan Xiaoyi. "Brother Duanmu," Zhan Xiaoyi was shocked at this moment. She looked at Duanmu Lu in surprise and said, Nie Tian City Lord is your teacher?" Duanmu Lu actually called Nie Tian teacher. Zhan Xiaoyi even suspected that she heard wrongly. Nie Tian and Duanmu Lu were similar in age and strength. In fact, Nie Tian's cultivation was only at level 1 giant spirit, which was 3 levels weaker than Duanmu Lu. Such a master-disciple relationship was indeed rare. Chapter 344. During the selection, Nie Tian's punch left a half-meter deep fist mark on the Qiankuan stone. This scene left a deep impression on Zhan Xiaoyi because he noticed that Nie Tian didn't use any martial arts technique at that time. He punched with pure strength. Zhan Xiaoyi thought he could do it too, but he had the battle cloud tyrant body after all. However, Nie Tian clearly wasn't a heaven and earth spiritual body martial artist, and his strength was only at the first level of the Titan spirit. He couldn't understand how he could release such power with one punch. Nie Tian smiled faintly and said, "Why? Do you think I'm not fit to be Duanmulu's teacher?" "Teacher, Brother Jean didn't mean that." Before Zhang Xiaoi could speak, Duanmulu had already explained on his behalf. It seemed like the relationship between the two was improving very quickly, and they seemed to be close friends. Zhang Xiaoi frowned slightly and said seriously, "Nie Tian City Lord, I don't mean to offend you. I just find it strange." Nie Tian nodded slightly and couldn't help but shake his head with a smile. Zhang Xiaoi and Duanmulu were both too straightforward and didn't understand teasing. It was frustrating. Nie Tian suddenly thought of something and said to Zhang Xiaoi, "Zhang Xiaoi, your battle cloud tyrant body is more than aggressive, but not flexible enough. If you meet an opponent who is more aggressive than you must be extra careful." Zhang Xiaoi was slightly stunned and said, "Thank you for the reminder, Nie Tian City Lord. However, I haven't met an opponent who is more aggressive than my battle cloud tyrant body." Zhang Xiaoi had heard the same reminder from his father, the battle cloud sect lord. However, he didn't take it to heart because he felt that it was difficult to find someone who was more aggressive than his battle cloud tyrant body. At least, he hadn't met such a person until now. Battle Cloud Tyrant Body was an advanced Earth-class heaven and Earth spiritual body. It was indeed difficult to find a martial artist who could match it in terms of physique. Nie Tian raised his eyebrows and smiled. He suddenly turned around and pointed to a bearded dwarf in the distance. "Do you see that little guy? He is someone who is even more ferocious than your Battle Cloud Tyrant Body. If you meet him, you will most likely lose." "Him?" Zhang Xiaoi looked at the bearded dwarf and could not help but frown. The dwarf Nie Tian was pointing at was none other than Tong Fu. Tong Fu's Hammer of Destruction was an 8th-grade legendary primordial spirit. It was ferocious and not inferior to the Battle Cloud Tyrant Body, especially before Xiaoi's Battle Cloud Tyrant Body had fully matured. Moreover, the dwarf clan was born with a strong vitality and martial body that far surpassed that of humans. Therefore, he would definitely be a formidable opponent for Zhang Xiaoi. If Zhang Xiaoi and Tong Fu were to fight, the odds of victory would be 2-8, or even 1-9. "Thank you, Nie Tian City Lord, for your reminder." Zhang Xiaoi furrowed her brows slightly, obviously not taking Nie Tian's reminder to heart. Seeing Zhang Xiaoi turn around and leave, Nie Tian's lips twitched. He shook his head and murmured, "If you don't listen to your elders, you will be at a disadvantage." Duanmulu looked at Nie Tian's young face speechlessly. He was simply speechless. The commotion caused by the battle between Duanmulu and Zhang Xiaoi only died down after a long time. Then, the second round of competition continued. Nie Tian quickly ended his 3 rounds of martial arts, winning all 3 rounds. In the following battles, there were a few that caught Nie Tian's attention. Ding Yifan battled with a martial artist called Long Sky and lost. Duanmu Weiner battled with a martial artist called Qing Xian and lost. After that, even Tang Yuyu lost to Qing Xian. Ding Yifan, Duanmu Weiner, and Tang Yuyu were all at the first level of the giant spirit realm. Although they weren't very strong, they were still quite strong. Especially Ding Yifan, although he was only at the first level of the giant spirit realm, his origin spirit was the Dark Knight Black Sand. His true battle strength was comparable to a 4th or 5th level giant spirit realm martial artist. Long Sky easily defeated him, so his strength shouldn't be underestimated. He was at least at the same level as Dongfang Du and Chu Shifeng. As for the girl called Qing Xian, she defeated Duanmu Weiner and Tang Yuyu consecutively. Her strength was also extraordinary. These two slightly caught Nie Tian's attention. As for the other martial artists, none of them could catch Nie Tian's attention. In fact, Nie Tian knew that the real experts hadn't shown their strength yet. It wasn't the time for the experts to battle yet, so there was no need to expose too much of their strength. For example, Nie Tian won 6 rounds of martial arts with ease. He didn't even have to use the sword Absolute Heaven Slash, let alone his Star Soul, 9 Extreme Chaos Beast, and 3 Seals of the God of War. The second round of competition ended quickly. After the second round, close to 400 people were eliminated. In just 2 rounds of competition, the top 100 was decided. Only 96 martial artists were left in the competition. Many martial artists realized the cruelty of the dragon blood martial meat and chose to give up. After all, their lives were the most important. If they met the Ash Wolf Assassin, Mr. Z, and Gu Qilin, the 3 killing gods, it wouldn't be good. Nie Tian fought his way into the top 100 with 6 victories. The others beside him, Rui Qianyu, Aoki Yuri, Tong Fu, and Tang 13 also won all 6 battles. Duanmu Lu, Ding Yifan, Tang Yuyu, and Duanmu Weiner lost 1 battle each, but they all entered the top 100. Originally, Nie Tian thought that the dragon blood martial art would take 2 days to finish. But from the looks of it, the results would be out today. This was all thanks to the 3 killing god. If not for them, there wouldn't be so many people giving up. In the following competition, the rules were changed. The 96 people were divided into 8 groups, and the grouping was based on everyone's previous battle result. They tried their best not to put powerful martial artists in the same group. The 8 groups had 12 people in each group. The top 2 would enter the top 16 of the Dragon Blood martial meet. The group that Nie Tian was in did not have any powerful opponent. There were only 2 people worth paying attention to. One was Dongfang Du, who had lost to him before, and the other was Long Sky, who had just defeated Ding Yifan. Nie Tian was very familiar with Dongfang Du. His most powerful move was the forbidden move of the Divine Transformation art, Dragon Form Divine Transformation. But with Dongfang Du's personality, if he met Nie Tian, he would probably immediately admit defeat. And with regards to Long Sky, Nie Tian was somewhat curious. Because he had defeated Ding Yifan in 1 move, and had not given him any leeway. If not for Ding Yifan's Dark Night Black Sand Yuan spirit being nimble and flexible, he would have been tortured to death on the spot. Nie Tian didn't really want to meet this guy, because he didn't want to reveal his true strength too early, and even more so didn't want to use his Star Soul too early. The other group's grouping was also not bad. The people on his side were basically not grouped together. After all, it was Elder Gu and the others who had decided on the grouping. They couldn't let their own people kill each other. At this time, there were less than 100 people left in the dojo. The eliminated martial artists had all been expelled from the dojo. Nie Tian swept his gaze over the 100 or so martial artists in front of him. Basically every one of them was at or above the giant spirit realm. Only a few were at the 9th level of the Wanxiang realm. To be able to fight their way into the top 100 with the strength of the 9th level of the Wanxiang realm could only be said that they were lucky. Very quickly, a new round of battles began. Group 1, first match, number 14 versus number 26. The referee's voice rang out, once again calling out Nie Tian's number. Similarly lucky, Nie Tian was once again the first to fight. With a step, Nie Tian steadily landed on the stage, and opposite him, a handsome youth appeared at almost the same time. The two stood facing each other, looking at each other. When Nie Tian saw his opponent's face, he couldn't help but be startled. The corners of his mouth curled up slightly as he said in his heart, "This guy looks only 12 or 13 years old, but he's actually at the 5th level of the giant spirit realm. He's quite powerful." The opponent in front of Nie Tian was actually a 12 or 13-year-old youth. He should be the youngest participant in this dragon blood martial meet. This person was young, but his strength was not weak. He actually had the strength of a 5th level of the giant spirit realm. "Brother Xan, do your best." Below the stage, a clear voice rang out, cheering for the youth on the stage. Nie Tian turned to look. The girl who was cheering for him was actually one of the people he paid attention to, the one who had just defeated Tang Yuyu and Duanmu Weiner, Qing Xian. Nie Tian compared the two's appearances. There was a slight resemblance. He immediately came to a realization and said to the youth opposite him with a smile, "The Qing Xian, below the stage is your sister?" Qing Xian's sharp eyes flashed with a cold light as he said, "That's none of your business." His name was Qing Xian, and he was Qing Xian's younger brother. Qing Xian, brother Xian, is indeed very powerful, but if he meets the Nie Tian city lord, he will definitely lose. At this time, another figure appeared below the stage. It was none other than Ding Yifan. Ding Yifan clearly knew the Qing Xian siblings, and they were very familiar with each other. Qing Xian and Qing Xian were the son and daughter of the president of the Guanghe Chamber of Commerce. The Guanghe Chamber of Commerce, like the Diwan Chamber of Commerce, was one of the 7 top Chamber of Commerce in the Marshall Meeting Merchant Union. The Diwan Chamber of Commerce's area of activity was mainly in the Nanshan region, while the Guanghe Chamber of Commerce's area of activity was mainly in the Western Peak region. The distance between the Nanshan region and the Western Peak region was not far, and Ding Yifan had heard that the Guanghe Chamber of Commerce had plans to expand to the Nanshan region. Therefore, it was not strange for the Qing Xian siblings to appear at the Dragon Blood Martial Meet. Ding Yifan, shut your crow's mouth. Qing Xian's delicate face slightly sank as she angrily rebuked. Miss Xian, why are you angry? I'm just speaking the truth. Ding Yifan was not angry. He crossed his arms in front of his chest, looking very proud. I won't allow you to speak the truth. Qing Xian suddenly leaned over and fiercely stepped on Ding Yifan's foot as she said with a face full of anger. Nie Tian was speechless. Were the two people below the stage really not flirting? Qing Xian Yifan is right. If Brother Xian encountered other people, he might have a chance, but against Nie Tian City Lord, he doesn't have the slightest chance. Just at this time, an extremely charming demonic voice rang out. Aoki Lily slowly walked over with graceful steps, and the surroundings immediately had an additional charming aura. Although Qing Xian was at the 5th level of the giant spirit realm and was also the 9th genius on the Western Peak region's genius list, he was too unlucky to encounter Nie Tian in his first battle. Aoki Lily and Ding Yifan both knew Nie Tian's strength. Defeating Qing Xian was as easy as flipping his hand. Aoki Lily, you siblings are really interesting. Can't you stop your crow's mouth? Qing Xian's pretty face was slightly angry. She was obviously very dissatisfied with Aoki Lily. All of you shut up. Can't you let people calm down for a while? Suddenly, Qing Xian, who was on the stage, became angry. He fiercely glared at the people below the stage. Immediately after, his body shook and a giant tiger-lion-like beast appeared behind him. The strangest thing was that this giant beast actually had 2 pairs of wings on its back. Chapter 345. Nie Tian looked at the liger beast behind Qing Xian and couldn't help but frown. The gigantic liger was 30 meters long, and its huge head was covered with a lion's mane, giving it an awe-inspiring appearance. However, its body was covered with the golden stripes of a fierce tiger. On its broad back, 2 pairs of huge wings suddenly unfurled. Like 4 huge palm leaf fans, they whipped up a fierce gust of wind and swooped towards Nie Tian like wind blades. What a powerful spirit! Nie Tian wasn't afraid at all. He smiled and guessed in his heart, Qing Xian's spirit is at least rank 5, maybe even rank 6. Rank 6 spirit. It was definitely a rare existence. What was even rarer was the pair of huge wings on the back of the liger beast. It looked very powerful, giving people a strong sense of oppression. Nie Tian City Lord, I don't believe that you, with the strength of a giant spirit realm, will be a match for my flying tiger mystical lion's spirit. Qing Xian shouted loudly. Although it was quite powerful, His voice contained a child's voice that hadn't completely faded, making people feel a little awkward. Flying Tiger Mystical Lion. So the giant spirit true body behind Qing Xin was called Flying Tiger Mystical Lion. Oh, it's a domineering little kid. Nie Tian smiled faintly, not afraid of the imposing manner of the Flying Tiger Mystical Lion. Instead, his face was relaxed, with a hint of ridicule. You dare to call me a little kid, you're courting death. Qing Xion's face was full of shame and anger. The Flying Tiger Mystical Stone let out a loud roar, and immediately flapped its 4 wings. The surging energy burst out, forming a storm in the air, breaking through the air and pressing towards Nie Tian. Brother Xian, don't underestimate the enemy. Qing Xian saw that Qing Xian had rashly made a move and was afraid that he would anger Nie Tian, so she anxiously cried out, Miss Xian don't worry, I won't hurt your brother. At this critical moment, Nie Tian took the time to glance at Qing Xian. Immediately, the absolute heaven-slash sword appeared in his hand. He smiled and said, Little guy, I'm in a good mood. I'll play with you. As soon as he finished speaking, the sword absolute heaven-slash was thrust out. Suddenly, the proud sword crazily flowed out. The fierce and blazing sword chi gushed out, and a huge sword shadow instantly condensed to meet the storm in the air. Bang! Amidst the surging chi waves, Qing Xian was forced to retreat 3 steps. Looking at Nie Tian again, he did not move at all, like a stabilizing force in the midst of the raging waves. This was the first time Nie Tian had used his sword in the dragon blood martial art. If he did not display a bit of his aura, he would be letting down the audience. Nie Tian, you're too arrogant. Qing Xian steadied himself. He was seething with anger and his small face was completely red. He felt the terror of Nie Tian's sword chi, and he couldn't help but feel a trace of fear in his heart. The audience below the stage and outside the martial arts arena all had their eyes on the battle between Nie Tian and Qing Xian. After all, Nie Tian's name was too famous. On the high stage, Gu Yi and the others didn't have much of an expression. Nie Tian had already given them enough surprises, and they were already numb to it. Qing Xian, on the other hand, was rather eye-catching. At the age of 13, he was already at the 5th level of the giant spirit realm. Just this martial Dao talent alone was enough to astonish people. Qing Fei's son is really impressive. The vice president of the Great Yuan Chamber of Commerce, Lu Liangkai, obviously wasn't a stranger to Qing Xin. He praised sincerely, I have long heard that the younger generation of the Guanghe Chamber of Commerce has outstanding talent. Seeing it today, it is beyond this old man's expectation. Qing Fei was the president of the Guanghe Chamber of Commerce, and at the same time, he was Qing Xian and Qing Xian's father. N. The 7th commander of the Elixir Martial Hall, Zhao Kuo, also nodded slightly. With a loud voice, he laughed loudly and said, Previously, I only heard that the eldest young mistress of the Guanghe Chamber of Commerce, Qing Xian, had outstanding talent and was ranked 4th on the genius ranking of the Western Peak region. Now that I see this little fellow, Qing Xian, he seems to have surpassed his sister. Qing Xian was ranked 4th on the genius ranking of the Western Peak region, while Qing Xian was ranked 9th. However, the former was already 17, while the latter was only 13. Therefore, in terms of martial Dao talent alone, Qing Xian seemed to be superior. Indeed. Lu Liangkai nodded and smiled, but his smile was somewhat forced. After all, the Guanghe Chamber of Commerce was one of the competitors of the Great Yuan Chamber of Commerce. Seeing such a strong opponent, he felt a little upset in his heart. However, Aoki Lily and Ding Yifan weren't weak either. Perhaps they might be lacking compared to the siblings of the Qing clan now, but that might not be the case in the future. This was because Lu Liangkai knew that Ding Yifan had obtained 2 heaven-ranked martial techniques from Nie Tian. It just so happened that he and Aoki Lily could cultivate one each. Heaven-ranked martial techniques were definitely rare items. 2 heaven-ranked martial techniques were sufficient for the Great Yuan Chamber of Commerce to stand out from the 7 peak merchant associations of the Martial Gathering Merchant Union. Thinking of this, Lu Liangkai felt much more at ease. In the arena, the battle between Ye Tian and Qing Xian continued. The two of them had already exchanged several moves. Ye Tian firmly suppressed Qing Xian. He controlled his attacks well, knocking him back without injuring him. Young man, guard against arrogance and rashness. Rashness is the devil, Ye Tian chuckled as he looked at Qing Xian, who was so angry that his neck turned red. Qing Xian was very talented in the martial Dao. Unfortunately, he was somewhat anxious. Ye Tian did not have any intention of teasing him. He just wanted to use this opportunity to temper his temperament. On the path of the martial Dao, if one wanted to achieve something and go far, talent and perseverance were both indispensable. In the early stages, talent was more crucial than perseverance. However, as one progressed, the importance of perseverance became even more apparent. Without an extraordinary heart for the martial Dao, it was impossible for one to reach the peak of the martial Dao. Qing Xian had talent, but he lacked perseverance. However, he was still young. It was not a big deal for him to be a little insolent. After all, not everyone could be like Duanmu Lu, prematurely aged. Ah! Qing Xian could not suppress the anger in his heart and roared out arrogantly. The flying tiger mystical lion behind him let out a roar that soared to the sky. The entire arena could hear the tiger's roar like thunder. Greenwood Lily, Ding Yifan and Qing Sienna frowned as they watched from below. Of course, they could tell that Ye Tian was completely playing with Qing Xian. If he wanted to win, one sword strike would be enough. Qing Xian knew that Ye Tian had no intention of hurting Qing Xian, so the stone in her heart fell to the ground. She was no longer as worried as before. Mystical Lion's Fury. With a loud roar, the 2 giant claws of the flying tiger mystical lion behind Qing Xian smashed down. A cold whistling sound immediately appeared in the air. Soon after, a fierce claw shadow broke through the air. Ye Tian felt the air in front of him suddenly tighten. He could not help but be slightly startled. He immediately smiled and said, "Forget it, let's end it here." This little guy Qing Xian was really angry. If he continued to tease him, he might kill someone. Qing Xian, you are very strong. Take my strongest move. War God's Heaven Slash. Ye Tian stepped on the ground and leaped high into the air. The proud sword Heavenly Wings unfolded behind him. The sword Absolute Heaven Slash slashed down from the sky. Chapter 346. Ye Tian's War God Heavenly Slash wasn't a move of the proud sword art, but a move of the 9 extreme War God art. Of course, it wasn't his strongest move. However, he didn't want to hurt Qing Xian too much, so he deliberately shouted it out to give the latter some confidence. Bang! The flowing light giant sword slashed down. The flying tiger mystical lion roared, and used both of its claws to resist. Suddenly, there was a loud sound, and the entire stage shook violently. The rank 1 spirit formation on it directly collapsed. The aura of the formation and the power of the spirit inscriptions dissipated, causing dust to fly into the sky. Ah! Qing Xian screamed and was directly thrown off the stage. You! After landing on the ground, Qing Xian retreated a few steps before finally standing still. He pointed at Ye Tian and was just about to speak when he felt a tightness in his chest. Soon after, his small face turned red and he violently spat out a mouthful of blood. You lost. Ye Tian floated down on the stage, raised his eyebrows and faintly smiled. I don't accept it, let's go again. Qing Xian's face turned red as he growled. All right. Ye Tian smiled and said in his heart, this little guy is quite arrogant, his arrogance is not bad. In Ye Tian's opinion, it's okay for a martial artist to be arrogant, but they absolutely can't be unreasonable. Losing isn't scary, What's scary is admitting defeat. It's rare for Qing Xian to have this kind of arrogance. Brother Xian. Just when Qing Xian was about to jump onto the arena again, Qing Xian hurriedly rushed over and pulled him back. Sis. Qing Xian's face was full of unwillingness. He still wanted to say something, but Qing Xian glared at him sternly. Everyone in the Guanghe Chamber of Commerce knew that Qing Xian wasn't even afraid of his father, Qing Fei, but he was afraid of his sister, Qing Xian. Qing Xian pulled Qing Xian back and looked at Nie Tian. Her face raised a warm smile and said, "Thank you, Nie Tian City Lord, for showing mercy." Lady Xian don't talk nonsense. I didn't show mercy. Your brother is very strong. If he was the same age as me, the outcome might be uncertain. Nie Tian's mouth slightly twitched as he said with a serious face. Qing Xian was very smart and naturally knew that Nie Tian didn't want to hurt Qing Xian too much. She just nodded slightly and didn't say anything more. She knew that Nie Tian hadn't used his full strength just now. Otherwise, even if Qing Xian had 10 lives, he would still be dead. Looking at Nie Tian from the side, Aokiki Malushi's face was full of smiles, but she thought to herself, Nie Tian is really good. Not only did he easily win the martial duel, but he also made Qing Xian and her brother owe him a favor. This time, Aoki Eureka had really misunderstood Nie Tian. Nie Tian really did not play any tricks. He was just playing with Qing Xian on a whim. Then, the judge walked onto the stage and announced, "First group, first match. Number 14 wins. Points +1. At this time, the rules of the match were based on points elimination. Each group had 12 people and each person had to fight 6 matches. Winning a match would accumulate 1 point. Losing a match or drawing a match would result in 0 points. After the 6 matches, the 2 people with the highest points would win. If they had the same points, they would fight. Nie Tian walked down from the martial arena. Originally, he was planning to rest for a while, but the 2 figures on the martial arena not far away attracted his gaze. The battle between these 2 people is a little suspenseful. Nie Tian looked at the 2 figures and couldn't help but walk over. The 2 figures on the stage were very familiar to Nie Tian, Tang 13 and Chu Shifeng. Seeing the battle between Tang 13 and Chu Shifeng on the stage, not far away, Nie Tian couldn't help but be interested. Nie Tian was very clear about Chu Shifeng's strength. He had already experienced it in the ancient Bloody Tomb. As for Tang 13, although Nie Tian wasn't unfamiliar with him, he wasn't very clear about his true fighting ability. Nie Tian had secretly observed Tang 13's previous matches. Unfortunately, his opponents were too weak. He couldn't force out Tang 13's true strength. Chu Shifeng was a good opponent. It wouldn't be easy for Tang 13 to win this match. The battle between the 2 attracted many people's attention. Most people only knew Chu Shifeng. They didn't know Tang 13. As for those fellows from Shumi Spirit Capital, they were very familiar with Tang 13. This was because other than the 3 monstrous geniuses of Shumi Spirit Capital, there were also 3 weirdos, and Tang 13 was one of them. Tang 13 was a weirdo because he had the Tang family's strongest skill, the Ghost Eye. However, he was unwilling to open it, causing his cultivation to be very low. Even after opening it, he rarely used it. Although he was doted on by Tang Hao, he always disobeyed Tang Hao. The weirdest thing about Tang 13 was that he had an engagement with one of Shumi Lingdu's 4 beauties, Meng Xueqing. However, this engagement was destroyed by him. Meng Xueqing was the granddaughter of the 3,000 Small Worlds Alchemist Guild's president, Meng Fanchen. She was one of Shumi Lingdu's 4 beauties. She was the dream lover of countless youths. As a direct descendant of the Tang family, Tang 13 and Meng Xueqing were a match made in heaven. Unfortunately, this guy didn't know what was good for him. A year ago, he ran to the Alchemist Guild alone and destroyed the engagement. Because of this, Tang Hao had to personally apologize to Meng Fanchen. In the end, although Meng Fanchen accepted Tang Hao's apology, he was still hostile towards the Tang family. What was even more ridiculous was that after Tang 13 caused a ruckus in the Alchemist Guild, he disappeared. Who knew what method he used to get rid of the Tang family's secret guards? Until a few months ago, Tang 13 appeared in the Wind Qin Empire. He was found by the Tang family's branch in the Wind Qin Empire and sent back to Shumilingdu. Although Tang 13 had caused a huge disaster, Tang Hao's love for him didn't decrease. He was only confined for a few months, and now he was released again. At this moment, below the stage, several eyes were staring at Tang 13. The expressions in their eyes were all different. Brother Tang, your weirdo 13th brother is on the stage. His opponent isn't weak. He's actually in the 8th layer of the giant spirit realm. Aren't you worried for your good little brother? Qiu Shaokong's small eyes flashed with a malicious light. As he spoke, he observed Tang Zhao's reaction. Worried? Tang Xiao smiled cold and said, I'm worried that he won't die. Tang Zhao's tone was ice-cold. His eyes were vicious as he looked at Tang 13. It was as if the person in front of him wasn't his little brother, but an enemy he had a blood feud with. Tang Xiao really hated Tang 13. It was hatred born from jealousy. The ghost eye was known as the Tang family's bloodline eye. However, not every Tang family descendant had the ghost eye. Only an extremely small number of talented people had the ghost eye. And Tang 13 was one of those talented people. Moreover, Tang 13's ghost eye was personally appraised by Tang Hao as the strongest ghost eye the Tang family had in 100 years. Chapter 347. It was because he had the strongest ghost eye that Tang 13 was deeply loved by Tang Hao. Unfortunately, Tang 13 did not cherish this love at all. Instead, he disobeyed Tang Hao's every action. Strangely, the more Tang 13 behaved this way, the more Tang Hao liked him. Because of this, the other descendants of the Tang clan slowly became hostile towards Tang 13, especially those who also had the ghost eye. Unfortunately, Tang Xiao also had the ghost eye, but his ghost eye was far weaker than Tang 13's. This made his hatred for Tang 13 even more intense. A few months ago, Tang 13 returned to Shumiling capital. Under Tang Hao's personal guidance, his strength rapidly increased. In a few months, he went from the first level of Wanxiang to the first level of Giant. There was a rumor in the Tang clan that Tang Hao let Tang 13 out because he wanted to use the dragon blood martial meat to verify his growth. This made the eyes of the descendants of the Tang clan even redder. They wanted Tang 13 to die at the dragon blood martial meat. My 13th brother, as your older brother, I want to see if your ghost eye is really that powerful. Tang Xiao looked at Tang 13, the killing intent in his eyes undisguised. Qiu Shaokong glanced at Tang Xiao. His small eyes spun a few times. No one knew what he was thinking. He laughed darkly. Brother Tang, I heard that this Chu Shifeng is on the Southern Mountain Genius list. He was also the first disciple of the palace master of the Qiankuan Palace, Duanmu Bai. I don't know how he got involved with Dongfang Du recently. If your strange 13th brother runs into him, he should be careful. Gu Qiulin also sneered. He looked at Tang 13 with a look of disdain and said, Tang 13 is a weirdo. I don't think he can even take one blow from Chu Shifeng. I don't think so. Suddenly, a gloomy voice sounded. Tang Xiao, Qiu Shaokong, and Gu Qiulin turned at the same time. In front of them was a handsome youth, who looked to be about 15 or 16. Behind him stood a woman in purple, about 20 years old. HM? The three frowned at the same time. They saw that the youth's eyes were crimson red. The woman in purple was in the first level of true energy. The crimson-eyed youth and the purple-clothed woman were none other than Mo Shi and Zi Huo. Mo Shi glanced at Tang Xiao and the others without saying another word. He looked at Tang 13 with a strange and surprised expression. Meanwhile, on the high platform, when he saw Chu Shifeng on the martial arts arena, Duanmu's pale face suddenly sank, and it was as unsightly as it could be. Palace Lord Duanmu, there are some people who don't deserve your anger. Elderly naturally knew what Duanmu Bai was thinking. Duanmu Bai solemnly nodded and said, Chu Shifeng grew up in Qiankuan Palace. I treated him like a father and personally guided him. I didn't expect that this would be the result. A dignified disciple of Qiankuan Palace is actually following someone else like a barking dog. I, as a teacher, am really ashamed. Elderly said indifferently, this kid, Chu Shifeng, has a gloomy and low character. He really doesn't deserve Palace Lord Duanmu's treatment. Duanmu Bai let out a long sigh, but he couldn't let go of it. Damn. It's actually this stinking brat. On the other side, the 7th commander of the Dan Martial Palace, Zhao Kuo, saw Tang 13's face on the martial arts arena. He stood up and roared angrily. His voice was like thunder, and almost everyone in the martial arts arena could hear it. Zhao Kuo was originally a loud voice, and when he was angry, it was like a sound-amplifying spirit array. Brother Zhao, are you okay? Gu Yi looked at the inexplicably angry Zhao Kuo and asked with a face full of doubt. I'm fine. Zhao Kuo noticed that he lost his composure and quickly sat down. What? Commander Zhao, you know that youth? Lu Liangkai saw Zhao Kuo's reaction and couldn't help but ask. Zhao Kuo's eyes twitched a few times, and he purposely lowered his voice and said, That kid is the Tang clan's 13th young master, the weirdo of Sumi's spiritual capital. Tang 13? Gu Yi and Lu Liangkai were stunned at the same time. The guy who made a mess at the Alchemist Guild a year ago? Gu Yi, of course, knew Tang 13, and the latter even saved his life. However, Gu Yi didn't know Tang 13's true identity. He always thought that the latter was just Nie Tian's friend, and he didn't even think about the Tang clan. After all, if Tang 13 was a disciple of the Tang clan, how could he appear in the Blue Cloud City's black market? 1 year ago, Tang 13 made a mess at the Alchemist Guild, and it was very violent. Not only did it shake the entire Sumi spiritual capital, but even the entire mini-Sumi world knew about it. The reason why Zhao Kuo was so hostile towards Tang 13 was because he was the one who was guarding the Alchemist Guild. At that time, he didn't know why Tang 13 ran into the guild, and even barged into Meng Fanshan's room. After that, Meng Fanshan reprimanded Zhao Kuo harshly, and Zhao Kuo hated Tang 13 to the core. Even though a year had passed, Zhao Kuo's anger hadn't dissipated. Now that Gu Yi knew Tang 13's true identity, his interest was piqued. He chuckled. This kid is the Tang clan's most powerful Eye of the Ghost Eye. I have long heard that the Tang clan's Eye of the Ghost Eye is the eye of the bloodline, but I have never seen its power with my own eyes. Now that I have the chance to see it, I must take a good look. Master Gu is right. I also want to see the legendary Eye of the Ghost Eye. I want to see how terrifying it is. Lu Liangkai had the same thought. His eyes were glued to Tang 13, not wanting to miss a single thing. On the battle stage, Tang 13 and Chu Shifeng stood across from each other. Kid, if you don't want to die, just admit defeat. Looking at Tang 13, Chu Shifeng could sense that the latter was only of the first level of the Titan realm. The corner of his lips curled up, revealing his disdain. It was obvious that Chu Shifeng didn't know Tang 13's true identity. He thought the latter was just a nobody, so he didn't think much of her. Is that so? Tang 13 grinned, but I don't think you can even handle one of my eyes. One eye? Chu Shifeng froze. He didn't understand what Tang 13 was talking about. Just then, Tang 13 suddenly closed one of her eyes and chuckled. Let's do it. Little bastard, you're looking to die. Realizing that Tang 13 was really only looking at him with one eye, Chu Shifeng was enraged. Growling, all the spiritual energy in his body poured out and his qi increased exponentially. Ghostblade, Tang 13 stared at Chu Shifeng with one eye. Her face changed color as she mumbled two words, demonic killer. As soon as she finished speaking, Tang 13's tightly shut eyes suddenly opened. Immediately, the space of the entire stage suddenly tightened, and a strange force shot out like lightning. Wretch! In the next second, before Chu Shifeng could react, he felt a sharp pain coming from his shoulder. Chapter 348. In midair, Chu Shifeng's body drew a perfect arc and landed heavily on the stage. His arm was cleanly cut off from his shoulder and blood was gushing out. Dead silence. This extremely strange scene caused the entire arena to fall into a deathly silence. The sound of light breathing was clearly audible. Everyone's eyes widened as they stared at Tang 13 on the stage, as if they had seen a ghost. No one understood what happened. Even Duanmu, Bai, and the others on the stage didn't see how Tang 13 sent Chu Shifeng flying. Even the countless powerhouses hiding outside the arena didn't know what happened. Out of the hundreds of thousands of people here, only 2 people saw what happened. One was Nie Tian, the other was Tang Xiao. At this moment, the same phrase appeared in both of their minds: double-bladed ghost eye. The moment Tang 13's closed eye opened, Nie Tian clearly saw 2 red lines appear in the eye. These red lines were the ghost eye's ghost blade. Nie Tian had a deep understanding of the ghost eye from his previous life. He was very familiar with the process of opening the ghost eye. From low to high, they were single-bladed ghost eye, double-bladed ghost eye, triple-bladed ghost eye, thousand tribulations ghost eye, and blood moon ghost eye. For those who possessed the ghost eye, being able to open the double-bladed ghost eye was already very impressive. Those who could open the triple-bladed ghost eye were 1 in 10,000. As for the thousand tribulations ghost eye and the blood moon ghost eye, they were only known by their names. They had never appeared before. Because of this, the ghost eye didn't enter the list of the 10 great abnormal eyes. Nie Tian had seen the triple-bladed ghost eye in his previous life. The power of the triple-bladed ghost eye was unimaginable. It could easily kill a martial artist who was 1 realm higher than him. Nie Tian estimated that if the ghost eye could be opened to the myriad calamity ghost eye or the blood moon ghost eye, its level of terror would not lose to the 10 great Khanate other eyes. Nie Tian remembered that the first time he met Tang 13, her ghost eye had only just opened. She hadn't even formed the first ghost blade. Now, in less than a year's time, her ghost eye had formed 2 ghost blades. The terror of the ghost eye was enough to make one's hair stand on end. In the ghost eye, 1 ghost blade was a single-edged ghost eye, 2 ghost blades were double-edged ghost eye, and 3 ghost blades were triple-edged ghost eye. As for what the myriad tribulations ghost eyes and the blood moon ghost eyes were, Nie Tian had no idea. He guessed that he was not the only one who did not know. Even Tang 13 and Tang Hao, the owners of the ghost eye, did not know. Because up until now, no one had opened the myriad tribulations ghost eye or the blood moon ghost eye. Even the current Tang Hao had only unlocked the triple blade ghost eye. The fact that Tang 13 was able to wield the eye of the ghost eye to the double edge level within a year was proof of how talented she was. There must be a reason why Tang Hao loved Tang 13 so much. He personally confirmed that Tang 13's ghost eye was the strongest ghost eye the Tang clan had seen in 100 years. He even believed that Tang 13 could open the myriad tribulations ghost eye or even the blood moon ghost eye. The strongest ghost eye, this was the reason why Tang Hao loved Tang 13 so much. The technique that Tang 13 used just now, Ghost Blade Devil Killer, was the natural talent of the ghost eye. It was similar to Zhang Xiaoyi's battle cloud armor. Nie Tian had a very clear understanding of Tang 13's eye power. If Tang 13 had wanted to, she could have easily killed Chu Shifeng with that move just now. However, he didn't do so. He only chose to cut off one of Chu Shifeng's arms. This meant that Tang 13 was not a bloodthirsty person. He had to make sure that after this move, Chu Shifeng would not be able to fight back. He also had to intimidate the other opponent. Therefore, he chose to cut off one of Chu Shifeng's arms. After a long time, the entire battlefield exploded. Oh my God! Are my eyes playing tricks on me? Can someone tell me what the F***ck just happened? This is too strange, too strange. I can't believe my purple gold dog eyes. How come Chu Shifeng wasn't sent flying? Mother ****, I don't understand at all. What kind of heaven-defying technique is this? It doesn't make any F***king sense. The entire battlefield boiled. Tang 13's lips twitched, as if he wasn't interested in such a big commotion. When he walked down, Chu Shifeng was struggling to get up. The way he looked at Tang 13 was full of fear. At the same time, Tang Xiao and the others recovered from their shock. Brother Tang. Qiu Shaokong licked his chapped lips and forcefully suppressed the shock in his heart. He said, "This 13th brother of yours is really amazing. He doesn't fly, but he soars to the sky. Anyway, I can't understand his strength anymore," Gu Qiulin said, clicking his tongue. Tang Zhao's face was still full of shock. Inside a voice roared, Why is this guy so strong?" Qiu Shaokong and Gu Qiulin didn't see how terrifying Tang 13 was. But Tang Xiao, as someone who also had the ghost eye, of course he knew how terrifying Tang 13 was. Not even in his dreams did he think that Tang 13's ghost eye could produce 2 ghost blades. She had opened the ghost eye. He, Tang Xiao, opened his ghost eye when he was 10 years old. 10 years had passed and the ghost eye had only just formed 1 ghost blade. Tang 13, on the other hand, had only opened her ghost eye a year ago and had formed 2 ghost blade. Why is this happening? Why is Tang 13 this strong? Tang Xiao screamed in his heart. The hatred in his eyes reached an unprecedented level. He wanted nothing more than to cut Tang 13 into 1,000 pieces and torture him for 300 days. Sometimes people's emotions are just this strange. 2 people who didn't have any grudges against each other can develop into a life-or-death situation because of some small dissatisfaction. Tang Zhao's hatred towards Tang 13 was a living example. Tang 13, of course, noticed Tang Xiao, but he pretended not to see and chose to walk away. Even though Tang Xiao didn't recognize him as a brother, in his eyes, Tang 13 was still related to him by blood. Unless it was absolutely necessary, he couldn't have a falling out with Tang 13. Tang 13 walked off the stage. Beside him, a young girl was waiting for him. It was Tang Yuyu. "My 13 is so strong." Tang Yuyu giggled and subconsciously hugged Tang 13's arm. Her face was full of pride. The Tang Yuyu right now had completely said goodbye to the girl killer she once was. She was now a lively and cheerful girl. Nie Tian was right. Tang 13 should thank Tang Yuyu for his memory loss. Chapter 349. Sixth Uncle. The 6th uncle that Tang Xiao spoke of was none other than Tang 13's father. Unfortunately, he had already passed away. Tang 13's father's name was Tang Duan. His death was a taboo in the Tang family. Tang Hao did not allow anyone to mention it. Tang Yuyu was a little girl that Tang Duan brought back from a mysterious place. However, Tang Xiao did not know anything about what happened back then. Everything was a taboo that no one was allowed to mention. Regarding Tang Yuyu, Tang Xiao still remembered that when the little girl was 6 or 7 years old, she was taken away by someone due to an accident. Even though so many years had passed, Tang Xiao could still see the little girl's face from Tang Yuyu's face. He was certain that the girl next to Tang 13 was Tang Yuyu. Could it be that Tang 13 went missing a year ago to find Tang Yuyu? Tang Xiao guessed. He remembered very clearly that after Tang Yuyu went missing, Tang 13 acted as if she had lost her soul. She kept repeating, "Tang Yuyu, no matter where you are, I will find you," and similar words. At that time, the other disciples of the Tang family laughed at Tang 13 and said that he had gone crazy thinking about women. Tang Yi did not expect that Tang 13 would actually find the missing Tang Yuyu. "Tang 13, do you really care about her?" Tang Xiao could not help but think of something. His lips curled into a cold smile because he seemed to be in the same group as Tang Yuyu. Every group of warriors had to go through 6 battles. Therefore, Tang Zhao's chances of meeting Tang Yuyu were quite high. Thinking of this, Tang Zhao's gaze towards Tang Yuyu was filled with murderous intent. He did not dare to kill Tang 13, but Tang Yuyu's identity was not known to others. Therefore, he was someone that could be killed. Tang 13, aren't you very powerful? If I kill the person you care about the most, would you be heartbroken? Tang Zhao's cold smile echoed in his heart. If there was no one around, he would definitely have laughed out loud. Nie Tian was not far away. He saw Tang Zhao's every move. When he felt the murderous intent coming from Tang Xiao, he could not help but frown. He sighed in his heart, "We are of the same root, why are we in such a rush to kill each other?" What Nie Tian hated the most in his life was killing each other and fratricide. Therefore, after his rebirth, even if the Nie family didn't treat him well, he only killed Nie Santong. As for the other accomplices who helped Nie Santong, he didn't pursue them. Now that she saw Tang Zhao's eyes that wanted to kill Tang 13 and Tang Yuyu, she felt an inexplicable pain in her heart. If Tang Xiao really did something out of line, even if he was Tang Hao's son, Nie Tian definitely wouldn't let him off. It was precisely because Nie Tian hated fratricide that he couldn't let a rat's poop spoil the whole pot of porridge. Tang 13 defeated Chu Shifeng in 1 second with a shocking method. The commotion caused by this took a long time to die down. After a while, Nie Tian had finished his first 3 battles. Unsurprisingly, he won easily. He was lucky that he didn't run into Dongfang Du and Dragon Sky. However, it was hard to say if he would have the same luck in the next 3 battles. "Sister, be careful of this guy." At this moment, Ding Yifun's voice attracted Nie Tian's attention from the side of the arena next door. Nie Tian turned around and saw a familiar figure standing on the arena. It was the assassin from Lin Xian Tian Pavilion. Below the arena, Aoki Lily smiled faintly. It was obvious that she was going to enter the arena. Huh! Nie Tian couldn't help but frown when he saw that it was the battle between the Blue Wolf assassin and Aoki Lily. Nie Tian had already seen the strength of the Blue Wolf assassin. Although he wasn't a true Energy Realm warrior, he was a swordsman who had condensed sword intent. His strength was no less than a true Energy Realm warrior. As for Aoki Lily's strength, Nie Tian didn't know anything. He only knew that she was the 10th genius on the Southern Mountain Territory's genius list. However, Nie Tian could feel that Aoki Lily's origin spirit should be very powerful. It might be an extremely rare light attribute origin spirit. This was because she had an extremely charming aura. Such an aura couldn't be achieved by beauty alone. It must have something to do with her origin spirit. The battle between Aoki Lily and the Blue Wolf assassin also attracted the attention of others, especially when they saw the appearance of the Blue Wolf assassin. "Look, it's that masked guy. This guy has already killed many people. Those who fight with him will definitely die if they don't admit defeat." "That's right. I wonder who's going to be so unlucky to encounter this death god. This guy's opponent seems to be Miss Aoki Lily. Miss Lily is still not on the arena. Is she going to admit defeat?" "Admit defeat my ass. Miss Lily is a genius on the Southern Mountain Territory's genius list. Why would she be afraid of this masked guy? Just wait and see. Miss Lily will definitely kill this masked guy in one move." Hearing the crowd's discussion, Nie Tian shook his head slightly and thought to himself, "These guys are very confident in Aoki Lily." However, Nie Tian was a little worried. After all, Aoki Lily only had the strength of a 5th-layer giant spirit. Although she wasn't weak, she was much weaker than an assassin with sword intent. At this moment, the Grey Wolf assassin was standing on the stage like a rock, not moving at all. His face was covered by the Grey Wolf mask, making it impossible for others to see his expression. Only a pair of gloomy eyes could be seen, occasionally flashing, proving that he was still alive. This guy wasn't in a hurry. He didn't say anything, nor did he rush anyone. He just waited quietly. Aoki Lily looked at the blue wolf assassin on the arena and a smile appeared on her tender face. Then, she lightly tapped the ground with her toes and appeared opposite the blue wolf assassin. "I'm sorry to have made you wait for so long." Aoki Lily's enchanting voice was soft. The sweetness in her voice could melt people. The blue wolf assassin finally moved a little. He turned around slightly and said in a low voice, "A good opponent. It was worth the wait." "Thank you for the compliment." Aoki Lily smiled coquettishly. Her smile was like a flower. Any man who saw her would want to pounce on her and take 300 bites. However, in the next moment, Aoki Lily's body suddenly emitted a layer of faint fluorescence. Under the illumination of the sun, it was almost unnoticeable. Most people didn't notice that something was wrong, but Nye Tian sharply caught it. His face changed and he exclaimed in his heart, "Illusion array." That's right. Nye Tian was very sure that the faint fluorescence emitted from Aoki Lily's body had actually activated an illusion array in the blink of an eye. Indeed, Aoki Lily's primordial spirit is of the light attribute. Nye Tian confirmed this in his heart. Illusion arrays could only be set up by illusionists, and illusionists were an extremely rare group. Ever since his rebirth, Nye Tian had never seen an illusionist. Of course, other than the corpse demon lord. Aoki Lily could be said to be the first illusionist that Nye Tian had met. Moreover, this illusionist was very abnormal. If Nye Tian's perception was correct, the illusion array that Aoki Lily activated was actually a third-order illusion array. A third-order illusion array was enough to trap a true energy realm cultivator. Chapter 350. A Tier 3 Illusion Array. How is this possible? Nye Tian was extremely puzzled and could not believe his eyes. Aoki Lily had activated a Tier 3 illusion array in the blink of an eye. This was something that even a Tier 4 illusionist could not do. Furthermore, Aoki Lily's mental energy had clearly not even reached Tier 20. How could she activate a Tier 3 illusion array unknowingly? What the hell? Thinking up to this point, Nye Tian's forehead began to sweat because he had a guess in his heart. Aoki Lily was a cultivator with an innate illusion seal. An illusion seal was a very special kind of seal that contained the power of an illusion array. It must be so. Nye Tian suddenly confirmed his guess and thought to himself, Aoki Lily activated the illusion seal on her origin spirit. That's why she was able to set up a Tier 3 illusion array in the blink of an eye. A origin spirit with an innate illusion seal was definitely the rarest light attribute origin spirit. Among the 9 attribute origin spirits, metal, wood, water, fire, and earth were the most common. Wind and thunder were extremely rare, 1 in 10,000. Light and darkness were the rarest, 1 in a million. Not only did Aoki Lily have a light attribute origin spirit, but she also had an innate illusion seal. This kind of situation was 1 in a billion. I wonder if this Tier 3 illusion array can trap the blue wolf killer? Although Aoki Lily had successfully activated the Tier 3 illusion array, Nye Tian still expressed his worry. A Tier 3 illusion array was enough to trap an ordinary true element realm cultivator. However, whether it could trap a sword-intent swordsman was still unknown. A sword-intent swordsman's will was often much stronger than ordinary cultivators. Their resistance to illusions was also stronger. On the stage, Aoki Lily's expression became focused. The aura of the illusion array filled the entire stage. And at this moment, the world in the blue wolf killer's eyes completely changed. He suddenly felt the stars move and time and space change. In the blink of an eye, he was actually in the middle of raging waves. The blue wolf assassin's consciousness was completely out of control at this moment. His perception of himself was skewed. He felt that he was no longer a person, but a small boat sailing in the endless sea in the darkness. The surging waves around him hit him, and the small boat broke into pieces. The blue wolf killer's feeling was a completely different situation to the people outside the illusion array. everyone saw that the Ash Wolf assassin was standing still like a stone statue. His eyes were dull, as if he had lost consciousness. Bang! The illusory array released the power of the spirit runes and struck the body of the Ash Wolf assassin. Instantly, a horrifying wound appeared and blood flowed out. Looking at the strange scene in front of them, the surrounding martial artists were puzzled. What's wrong with the masked man? He doesn't have any reaction at all. Could it be that he has been completely charmed by Miss Lily's devastatingly beautiful appearance? Yeah, it's so strange. Look, even his eyes aren't moving. Is he really stupid? No way. This is a moment of life and death. Aren't you courting death if you act foolishly at this time? The people on the high platform also looked at each other, not knowing what was going on. Even Gu-Yi couldn't understand what was going on. He could only sense that the Greenwood Lily had activated a spiritual array. However, the aura of the spiritual array was a little strange. Even he couldn't tell what it was. Out of the hundreds of thousands of people present, Nie Tian was probably the only one who could tell that Oakwood Lily had actually activated a Tier 3 illusion array. Moreover, Nie Tian could faintly sense that there seemed to be a huge shadow behind Oakwood Lily. It seemed to be a white spirit fox with several tails flying in the air. Bang! 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 Immediately afterward, the power of several spirit runes struck out, and the Ash Wolf assassin's body immediately suffered several more wounds. His entire body was dripping with blood. At the same time, beads of sweat the size of beans appeared on Oakwood Lily's face. Clearly, it was very taxing for her. It seemed that maintaining the Tier 3 illusion array was a huge burden on her. It's time to end this. Very soon, Oakwood Lily wiped the beads of sweat off her forehead, and her eyes suddenly became determined. She raised both her hands slightly, and the power of the spirit runes in the illusion array immediately sensed it. In an instant, they gathered and formed a sharp awl that could be seen with the naked eye. In the next moment, as long as the awl stabbed out, it would definitely pierce through the Ash Wolf assassin and kill him on the spot. At the same time, in the illusion that the Ash Wolf assassin was in, the small boat was still swaying in the sea. Waves after waves crashed over, and the boat was about to be completely destroyed. At a certain moment, the small boat stopped swaying. The Ash Wolf assassin's consciousness became clearer at that moment. Immediately afterward, the Ash Wolf assassin smelled the scent of blood in the air. He immediately realized that everything in front of him was an illusion. There was no endless sea, no rolling waves, nothing at all. Outside the illusion. Die! Oakwood Lily shouted, and the light shadow all fiercely stabbed out towards the Ash Wolf assassin. However, at that moment, the Ash Wolf assassin's eyes suddenly blinked. Immediately afterward, he raised his arm, and a light shadow short sword appeared in his hand. With just a slash in the air, a thin layer of shield that could be seen with the naked eye was formed around his body. Sword intent shield. Seeing this, Nie Tian's face suddenly sank and he exclaimed in his heart, "Oh no! Oakwood Lily is going to lose." Bang! Almost at the same time, the light shadow all bombarded the Ash Wolf assassin's sword intent shield. With a loud explosion, it did not cause any damage to the thin shield at all. On the contrary, Oakwood Lily's delicate body suddenly shook and she screamed. The illusion array was broken, and she fell out of the arena. After landing, she landed on her butt. Although she was in a sorry state, she was not injured at all. "Sister, are you okay?" Ding Yifun hurried over and pulled Oakwood Lily up. "Phew. I'm fine." Oakwood Lily let out a long breath, and her small face was pale. Nie Tian estimated that Oakwood Lily needed to expend a large amount of essence force to maintain the rank 3 illusion array. Therefore, it was just that her essence force was running out, and she would be fine after some rest. It had to be said that Oakwood Lily was very lucky. If the Ash Wolf assassin had used his sword, she would have been seriously injured even if she did not die. Her illusion array was indeed powerful, but unfortunately, her strength was a little weak. Otherwise, the one who would have lost would be the Ash Wolf Assassin. The Ash Wolf Assassin completely sobered up, and immediately consumed a few elixirs. He looked at Oakwood Lily below the arena, and the anger in his eyes could not be concealed. He said coldly, "You are indeed an opponent worth waiting for. It was very dangerous just now, and the outcome of the battle could have been decided in a single thought. If the Ash Wolf Assassin had been half a second late, he would have been a corpse by now. You are also an opponent worth waiting for." Nye Tian walked over and said to the Ash Wolf Assassin, who was covered in blood. The Ash Wolf Assassin had already used the same move just now, which was equivalent to exposing his identity in front of Nye Tian. Therefore, he must be the one who launched a sneak attack on Nye Tian. The Ash Wolf Assassin knew that Nye Tian had already recognized him, so he no longer had any scruples and said directly, "Nye Tian City Lord, we meet again." Chapter 351. The Blue Wolf Assassin leaped off the arena and stared at Nye Tian with a pair of cold eyes as he said in a cold voice, "City Governor Nye Tian, you know that my face is shameful. What if this city lord insists on seeing him?" Nye Tian's eyes flashed with a strange light. His lips twitched as he stared at the Grey Wolf Killer. "Then Nye Tian City Lord, please come and take my mask." The Grey Wolf Killer smiled coldly, turned around and left. Nye Tian did not stop him. Looking at the back of the Grey Wolf Killer, he thought to himself, "This person is very strong. He cannot be underestimated. Even a true Energy Realm martial artist may not be able to break through a rank 3 illusion array. Looks like this Dragon Blood martial meet is going to be fun." "Nye Tian City Lord, you know this guy?" Aoki Lily walked over with a surprised look. Her expression seemed to say, "How can you know everyone?" Nye Tian smiled faintly and said, "Just an enemy who has not shed all pretense of cordiality." With that, Nye Tian turned around and left, not caring about Aoki Lily's expression. Aoki Lily's yuan power was severely depleted. She would probably have to give up on the rest of the competition. Ending the Dragon Blood martial meet early might not be a bad thing for her. Nye Tian had just walked back to his side of the stage when a battle that was about to begin on the other side immediately attracted his attention. "Tang Yuyu, just admit defeat for this battle." Tang 13 suddenly pulled Tang Yuyu and said hesitantly, "Tang 13, why are you so scared? Your forehead is sweating." Tang Yuyu's small face showed a hint of hesitation. He immediately touched Tang 13's forehead and smiled. He comforted her, "Don't worry. I will be fine. Have faith in me." With that, Tang Yuyu's figure flashed and he nimbly jumped onto the stage. "Tang Yuyu." Tang 13 felt an inexplicable pain in her heart. She stretched out her arm but did not grab anything. An ominous feeling welled up in her heart. When Nye Tian saw the figure waiting for Tang Yuyu on the martial stage, his heart suddenly sank. It's him. The figure on the arena was none other than Tang Xiao. No wonder Tang 13 was so worried and persuaded Tang Yuyu to admit defeat. It was because her opponent was Tang Xiao. Nye Tian sensed the faint killing intent on Tang Xiao's body from afar, and he couldn't help but frown. The latter was obviously concealing this killing intent, but unfortunately, it was too strong, and it was extremely difficult to conceal it. Tang 13 stared at Tang Xiao, who was on the battle stage. Tang Xiao's face was dark and his expression was complicated. No one could tell what he was thinking. "Third brother." Suddenly, Tang 13 raised her head and stared straight at Tang Xiao. She shouted in a serious tone and shook her head. "Don't." Tang 13, of course, sensed Tang Xiao's murderous intent. However, he didn't think Tang Xiao would actually kill Tang Yuyu. After all, the person in front of him was his third brother. "My 13th brother, don't worry." Tang Xiao looked at Tang 13 and squeezed out a stiff smile on his chubby face. He said indifferently, "Just because you called me third brother, I won't let you down." "Won't let you down." This sentence, no matter how you heard it, made people shiver. That kind of thick, killing intent was on the verge of exploding. On the high stage, several people saw Tang Zhao's face clearly, and they were all astonished. I didn't expect the Tang family's third young master to also come to the Dragon Blood martial meet. Zhao Kuo looked at Tang Xiao, his eyes revealing an unconcealable surprise. He knew that Tang Xiao was the Tang family's third young master, the head of the four great families. Moreover, he was ranked 15th on the Sumi Spirit City's genius list. This fatty is indeed powerful. Gu Yi sensed that Tang Zhao's strength was actually in the true energy realm's second level. He couldn't help but gulp and exclaim. The others also revealed shocked expressions. They were extremely shocked by Tang Zhao's strength. I hope this little girl will be fine. Of course, Gu Yi also recognized Tang Yuyu. She was the female assassin who had entered the burial cloud abyss with him. However, Tang Yuyu was now obviously Nie Tian's friend, so Gu Yi didn't want to see anything happen to her. On the stage, Tang Yuyu and Tang Xiao stood facing each other. You are Tang 13's third brother? Tang Yuyu heard Tang 13 call Tang Xiao, and couldn't help but ask. And, that's right. Tang Xiao nodded slightly, an extremely strange smile hanging on her face. If Tang Yuyu was still the female assassin, she would definitely be able to feel Tang Zhao's killing intent. Unfortunately, she was no longer an assassin. Very good, my name is Tang Yuyu, I am Tang 13's. Tang Yuyu didn't notice anything and even smiled. After hesitating for a moment, she said, I am Tang 13's friend. Don't worry, I will definitely not, Tang Yuyu. It really is you. However, Tang Yuyu's words were only halfway through when he was interrupted by Tang Xiao. In the next moment, the yuan power in Tang Zhao's body surged out like a broken dam, and the aura of his body suddenly skyrocketed. Oh no! Seeing this scene, Nie Tian's complexion suddenly changed, and he cried out in alarm in his heart. Third brother, I admit defeat on her behalf. Tang 13 also felt that something was wrong at the same time, and shouted loudly. Now you want to admit defeat, too late. Tang Zhao's cold laughter sounded, and the aura of his whole body pervaded out. The nearly condensed killing intent instantly enveloped Tang Yuyu. Tang Yuyu only had the strength of a first-level giant spirit, and Tang Xiao had the strength of a second-level true essence. The difference in strength between the two sides was too great, and Tang Yuyu simply had nowhere to run. Die! Before Tang Yuyu could react, Tang Xiao suddenly made a move. Following his beast-like roar, a several-meter-long palm phantom broke through the air and blasted towards Tang Yuyu. Tang Yuyu only felt the air around her suddenly tighten, and her body couldn't move even a little bit. At this moment, she finally felt that something was wrong. Her small mouth opened, but no sound came out. In the next moment, a tyrannical and unparalleled aura oppressed her, and then it was the most ferocious collision. Bang! There was a muffled sound in the air, and Tang Yuyu didn't even have time to shout half a word before her whole body was directly blasted off the stage. Bang! After falling to the ground, Tang Yuyu's delicate body was directly dragged several meters, leaving a deep drag mark on the ground, and above this drag mark was dripping with blood. Pooh! Pooh! After Tang Yuyu's body came to a stop, her body trembled violently, and she continuously spat out blood from her mouth. Her strength was too weak, and there was no way she could resist a close combat attack from a true element boundary martial artist. Moreover, Tang Zhao's attack had spared no effort, and it was obvious that he wanted to kill Tang Yuyu. I won't let you down, this was what Tang Xiao meant when he said he wouldn't let Tang 13 down. Tang Yuyu. The scene in front of her made Tang 13 directly roar, and with a loud wail, her figure appeared beside Tang Yuyu at an incredible speed, and with a plop, she knelt on the ground and held Tang Yuyu in her arms. Chapter 352. Bastard! Nie Tian roared. His figure flew over and landed beside Tang Yuyu and Tang 13. Wild yuan qi gushed out of his palm and surged into Tang Yuyu's body. However, it was too late. Tang Yuyu's Dantian and Yuan meridians were dead silent. Even under the impact of the Yuan Qi, there was no reaction. Nie Tian could clearly feel that Tang Yuyu's Yuan meridians and Yuan spirit were rapidly withering. The blood and Qi in his body gradually stopped, and his vitality was infinitely close to zero. Tang Zhao's attack was merciless. He spared no effort to kill Tang Yuyu in one strike. The full-strength attack of a second-level true element boundary martial artist was not something a first-level giant spirit martial artist could withstand. Tang 13 felt the girl in her arms grow colder and colder. Like a crazed beast, she roared into the sky, "Tang Xiao! Why did you do this?" As he roared furiously at the sky, the surrounding space was infected by sorrow, adding a deep pressure to the atmosphere. At this moment, Tang 13 felt like a knife was being twisted in his heart. He had already sensed Tang Zhao's killing intent, but he felt that the person in front of him was his third brother, so it was impossible for him to kill. In his heart, for Tang Xiao, for his third brother, he kept a little hope. Now it seemed that he was wrong, completely wrong. This sliver of luck had ruined Tang Yuyu's life. Nie Tian stood in place like a block of wood, but the blood in his heart was boiling, boiling and boiling. At some point, he hesitated. Originally, he could have used his third-ranked astral soul to kill Tang Xiao before the latter could act. But he considered that Tang Xiao was Tang Hao's son, so he did not do so. A moment of soft-heartedness had caused an irreparable regret. If Nie Tian was given another chance, he would not have shown mercy. However, there were no ifs in reality. Enemies would not be restrained because of your tolerance, and your loved ones would suffer because of your weakness. This was what Nie Tian often said to his soldiers in his previous life. At this moment, his comprehension of this sentence was much deeper than anyone else's. Suddenly, Tang 13's expression changed. As if remembering something, she took out a crystal-clear spiritual Dan. Rank 7 Spirit Recovery Pill. Nie Tian smelled a tyrannical aura from the pill and was stunned. The Spirit Recovery Pill was a level 7 spirit pill that was said to have the miraculous effect of reviving the dead. Nie Tian did not expect Tang 13 to have such a treasure on her. In the entire 3,000 lesser worlds, only the president of the Alchemist Guild, Meng Fanchen, could concoct a Tier 7 spiritual pill. Its preciousness was self-evident. 13th Young Master, don't. Suddenly, a voice sounded out from outside the martial field. However, it was too late. Tang 13 forced the pill into Tang Yuyu's mouth. Tang Hao had begged Meng Fanchen to give Tang 13 the Spirit Rejuvenation Pill to save her life. Tang 13 did not hesitate to feed it to Tang Yuyu. This caused Tang Xiao, who was on the stage, to become completely envious. Tang 13, don't waste the elixir. She's already dead. Suddenly, Tang Zhao's cold voice resounded. However, Tang 13 did not care and ignored Tang Xiao. However, after the Spirit Recovery Pill entered Tang Yuyu's body, there was no change. After a while, the last trace of life in Tang Yuyu's body disappeared. It was too late. Even the Spirit Recovery Pill could not save Tang Yuyu. Everyone stared at the scene in front of them dumbfoundedly. The atmosphere suddenly became sorrowful. Suddenly, the grief-stricken Tang 13 screamed again. She hugged the girl in her arms tightly and shouted, "Tang Yuyu, wake up! Wake up! Hurry up and wake up! I won't allow you to fall asleep." Seeing that Tang 13 had completely lost control, Nie Tian's heart was filled with grief. He wanted to slap himself in the face. He had been reborn, yet he was still soft-hearted. He had made a huge mistake. Tang 13, Nie Tian opened his mouth but didn't know what to say next. At some point, Tang 13 suddenly raised her head and looked at Nie Tian. Her eyes flashed with a strange light. She shouted, "Nie Tian, you are an alchemist. Save her, save her, save her." Tang 13 suddenly grabbed onto Nie Tian's hand. The way she was shaking was heartbreaking. Just then, Tang Xiao, who was on the stage, suddenly opened his mouth. My 13th brother, how does it feel to lose the love of your life? Tang Xiao asked coldly. His eyes were full of mockery. Why? Tang 13 raised her head and stared at Tang Xiao in disbelief. Looking at the man she called her third brother, she screamed in anger, Why did you kill her? Tang Xiao laughed coldly and shouted almost crazily, Because I want you to remember this moment forever. Remember this moment of heartache, remember this moment of hopelessness, remember this moment of helplessness. You bastard, you're looking for death. Suddenly Nie Tian roared. He stepped forward and jumped onto the stage. His entire body was full of murderous intent. Nie Tian, you! Tang Xiao couldn't help but shiver when he saw Nie Tian's ferocious gaze that was like a wolf's, and he actually subconsciously took a step back like a frightened kitten. Nie Tian couldn't care less. He wanted to kill Tang Xiao on the spot. Tang Xiao was a warrior in the second level of true element. He immediately calmed down. His whole body's momentum rose. His eyes flashed with contempt. He said coldly, With your strength of the first level of the giant spirit, you want to kill me? In the next moment, Nie Tian and Tang Xiao were facing each other. A life-or-death battle was about to begin. Just as everyone's nerves were stretched taut, the strangest and most frightening scene suddenly occurred. Hugh! Suddenly, a light breathing sound was heard. Tang Yuyu's originally stiff body suddenly moved. Nie Tian. Tang 13 suddenly noticed Tang Yuyu's movement. Her already despairing face suddenly flashed a touch of hope. She subconsciously called out to Nie Tian. Nie Tian also felt something at this moment. He turned around and jumped off the stage. At the same time, inside the chaotic original coffin in Nie Tian's body, the corpse demon king's small eyes widened. The few whiskers by the side of his mouth and the long tail stopped moving. The body of the spirit-devouring rat was completely petrified. In the corpse demon king's mind, a surprised voice sounded, She. This female human is actually a member of the demon realm's hidden soul family. Nie Tian noticed the corpse demon king's abnormality, but he didn't pay attention to it. Nie Tian focused all his attention on Tang Yuyu. Suddenly, he felt that the latter's already dead Yuan meridian and Yuan spirit moved. Then, the surrounding space suddenly tightened, and the power of heaven and earth changed. Suddenly, a thick earth attribute spiritual energy surged out from under the ground. In an instant, it turned into a surging life force and quickly rushed into Tang Yuyu's body. In the next moment, the originally completely lifeless Tang Yuyu's body shook. A strong wave of life force surged out. Chapter 353. Dragon Blood Martial Meeting in the martial grounds at the side of a martial stage. The space within a few hundred meters seemed to be tightened by an invisible force, and a strange change occurred in the power of heaven and earth. The 9 types of heaven and earth spirit energy that were originally mixed together seemed to be pulled by a subtle force, and the earth attribute heaven and earth spirit energy was extracted. At the same time, earth attribute heaven and earth spirit energy continuously surged out from the ground. The abundant earth attribute spirit energy transformed into an endless life force, like an invisible hand holding up life, and rushed into Tang Yuyu's body. At this moment, Tang Yuyu's Yuan spirit and Yuan meridian, which had been dead for a long time, had a reaction and actually began to circulate again. At the same time, all her vital signs appeared again, and her body once again had a temperature. How is this possible? Nie Tian suddenly felt that Tang Yuyu's Yuan meridian had actually begun to circulate again, and was instantly stunned. This is impossible. Nie Tian's expression instantly froze, and he lost his voice. Tang Yuyu's Yuan meridian had begun to circulate again, which meant that she had been resurrected. But how was this possible? Nie Tian had clearly felt that her Yuan meridian had stopped circulating, and all the circulation in her body had stopped, so how could it suddenly recover? The scene in front of him had exceeded Nye Tian's knowledge of the martial way and life. Even with his 2 lifetimes of experience, he was unable to explain everything in front of him, let alone the people around him. At this moment, all the spectators were looking at Tang Yuyu like idiots, collectively petrified, their expressions all stiff, as if they had seen a ghost. Even the people on the high platform, as well as the experts of the major forces hidden outside the martial grounds, were all stunned. Resurrection, this was definitely the most inconceivable thing they had ever seen. It completely subverted the understanding of martial artists. It completely subverted the boundaries of life and death. And what made Nye Tian most surprised was that Tang Yuyu's Yuan spirit was a 9-winged dragon crow, which was obviously a wind attribute Yuan spirit. How could it suddenly absorb earth attribute heaven and earth spirit energy so crazily? This made Nye Tian completely unable to understand. The heaven and earth spirit energy that was suddenly extracted from the earth and space was clearly earth attribute spirit energy. That dense earth attribute aura was definitely not a lie. Nye Tian's forehead was covered with dense beads of sweat. He completely did not know what was going on in front of him. Yes. Suddenly, right when Nye Tian was extremely bewildered, Tang Yuyu groaned, opened his eyes, and woke up. He was resurrected. He really resurrected. Who? Seeing that Tang Yuyu had really woken up, Nye Tian let out a long breath and forced himself to calm down. Corpse Luo. At this time, Nye Tian suddenly thought of something. He asked Corpse King Corpse Luo inside the Primal Chaos original coffin, "Tell me, what is going on?" Nye Tian recalled the Corpse Demon Monarch's reaction just now. It was obvious that the Corpse Demon Monarch knew the truth. Corpse Luo Demon King finally reacted. He raised his 2 front paws and stood with only his 2 back paws. "Master, do you really want to know?" "Don't talk nonsense. Tell me." Nye Tian bellowed. If he couldn't find out the truth, he would go crazy. Corpse Luo Demon King hesitated for a long time before saying, "Master, this female human, ah no, this woman, she is not human." "Not human?" Nye Tian's face stiffened and he almost cried out. "Don't keep me in suspense, get to the point." Nye Tian's shock had reached its peak, but he could not cry out, so he could only suppress it in his heart. "Yes." Corpse Luo Demon King made a swallowing motion and said directly, "Master, this woman is from one of the 3 wonders of the demonic realm, the Hidden Soul Clan." "Continue." Nye Tian's heart was at its peak and he urged. Corpse Luo Demon King's little face showed a hint of hesitation and said, "I don't know much about the Hidden Soul Clan. I only heard from the elder ancestor that the biggest characteristic of this clan is that they have 2 primary spirits, and they are 2 relatively independent primary spirits. One is called the primary spirit, and the other is called the Hidden Soul Clan. The Hidden Soul Clan's primary spirit awakens at first is the primary spirit, and the hidden soul is suppressed by the primary spirit, hiding in the depths of the soul, so they are called the Hidden Soul Clan. At the critical moment of life and death, the hidden soul hidden in the depths of the woman's soul awakened, and the long period of suppression caused the Hidden Soul Clan to completely erupt. This Hidden Soul Clan is obviously of the earth element, so it wildly absorbed the earth element heaven-earth spiritual energy around it, and that's how the woman came back to life. After explaining, Corpse Luo Demon King nodded heavily and said, "That's what happened." Hidden Soul Clan. Nye Tian kept exhaling the turbid air in his chest, and the shock on his face slowly faded. He suddenly asked, "Why have I never heard of this clan before?" Nye Tian had a lot of dealings with the people of the demonic realm in his previous life, so he thought he had a deep understanding of the demonic realm, but he had never heard of the Hidden Soul Clan, nor the 3 wonders of the demonic realm. Corpse Luo Demon King said, "The 3 wonders of the demonic realm are the hidden clans of the demonic realm. I've only heard of them before, and this is the first time I've seen them with my own eyes." "No wonder." Nye Tian nodded slightly. Dual elemental soul martial artists were rare, but there were still many. But someone like Tang Yuyu, who had a dominant elemental soul and a hidden elemental soul, was really a weirdo among the martial artists. Especially when the two elemental souls were relatively independent, and there was not much connection between them. Actually, Nie Tian was also a dual elemental soul martial artist. Ah no, it should be a triple elemental soul martial artist. A chaotic original coffin, a star soul original codex, and a 9-level chaos beast. But the relationship between the three was obviously very close, and they were all connected to each other. As expected, the world is big, and there are all kinds of wonders. The secrets of the martial world are not something that can be seen in a lifetime. Nie Tian looked at Tang Yuyu, who had already woken up, and sighed in his heart. But the next moment, Nie Tian's nerves tensed up again, and he exclaimed in his heart, Tang Yuyu, isn't she from the Tang clan? Why is she from the hidden soul clan of the demonic realm? I am also curious. Inside the chaotic original coffin, Demon King Corpse Luo shook his head and interrupted. The hidden soul clan was one of the 3 wonders of the demonic realm. For a descendant of the hidden soul clan to appear in the 3,000 small worlds of the human race, this was really strange. It seems like there is more to Tang Yuyu's identity than meets the eye. Nie Tian said in his heart, and forced himself to suppress all the questions he had. This was obviously not the right time to ask about Tang Yuyu's identity. Tang 13, why are you crying? The moment Tang Yuyu opened his eyes, he was shocked to see Tang 13 hugging him. Her face was full of tears, and her delicate face revealed a look of surprise. She then struggled out of Tang 13's embrace, and gently placed her hand on Tang Yuyu's cheek. Tang Yuyu, I. Tang 13 froze. Her eyes were filled with a myriad of emotions. It was hard to describe. Chapter 354. Nie Tian walked over. The moment he got close to Tang Yuyu, he immediately felt the strong life force from the latter. The most unacceptable thing was that she had broken through, from the first level of the Titan to the second level of the Titan. Eyebrows furrowed, Nie Tian thought to himself, I really want to know how Tang Yuyu feels now that he has awakened his hidden soul. Tang Yuyu, are you okay? Tang 13 finally stood up and looked at the girl in front of her with a surprised expression. I'm fine. What can happen to me? Tang Yuyu said. Then, she suddenly thought of something and screamed, Ah! Wasn't I on the stage just now? Why did I suddenly come down here? Nie Tian and Tang 13 were speechless. Did this girl lose her memory again? At this moment, everyone finally came to their senses. The scene that was originally dead silent suddenly burst into a commotion. Quick! Quick, slap me! Was I dreaming just now? Dream on! I'm the one who's dreaming. Fuck you, why did you pinch my thigh? Sorry, I pinched the wrong one. I wanted to pinch myself. Waves of speechless voices sounded. Nie Tian could only bitterly smile. Impossible! This is impossible! And at this time, Tang Xiao, who was on the martial stage, finally reacted after being stiff for a few minutes. His eyes widened as he bellowed, She's already dead. How can she come back to life? Tang Xiao looked at the lively Tang Yuyu, and his entire person was deranged and confused. He couldn't believe the scene in front of him. Tang Yuyu was clearly dead. Even her Yuan Ling Yuan meridian was completely withered. How could she come back to life? Although his eyes, his ears, his spirit, and all his senses were telling him that Tang Yuyu had come back to life, he still couldn't accept it. Coming back to life for no reason, this kind of thing was too unbelievable. Anyone would find it hard to accept. And among the hundreds of thousands of warriors, other than Nie Tian and Demon King Corpse Luo, no one knew what happened to Tang Yuyu. Even now, Nie Tian could not perceive Tang Yuyu's hidden primordial spirit. This meant that Tang Yuyu's recessive primordial spirit could not be perceived by others unless she revealed it herself. It must be the spirit recovery pill. Suddenly, Tang Xiao remembered something. He shouted at Tang 13, Tang 13, the spiritual restoration pill was given to you by the leader. Why did you use it on an outsider? Spirit recovery pill. When Tang Zhao's voice spread out, everyone immediately felt as if they had awoken from a dream. Yes, that's right. That's right. It must be that spirit pill from before. Yes, I also saw that guy stuff a spirit pill into that woman's hand. The aura of that spirit pill is very strong. I wonder what rank it is. It's definitely a rank 9 spirit pill. Otherwise, how could it have the miraculous effect of reviving the dead? Rank 9 spirit pill? Hearing everyone's discussion, Nie Tian couldn't help but smile. These people had no idea what a rank 9 spirit pill meant. The most powerful alchemist in the 3,000 small worlds was the Alchemist Guild's president, Meng Fanchen. Even he was only a rank 7 alchemist. A rank 9 spirit pill, even if all the alchemists in the 3,000 small worlds were gathered together and asked to refine it for 300 years, it was guaranteed that they wouldn't even be able to refine a fart of a rank 9 spirit pill. Even in the heaven realm and the god realm, the number of alchemists who could refine rank 9 spirit pills could be counted on one hand. In his previous life, Nie Tian, at his peak condition, could also refine a rank 9 spirit pill. However, that was only when he was in a good condition. If he was in a bad condition, he would fail every time he tried. On top of the stage, Gu Yi suddenly stood up and exclaimed, "The spirit pill in Tang 13's hand was a rank 7 spirit pill refined by Master Meng Fanchen, the spirit recovery pill." Spirit recovery pill. Zhao Kuo was also stunned. The legendary spirit recovery pill that can give birth to 4 people and regrow flesh and bones? Yes. Gu Yi nodded solemnly, his expression as determined as it could be. He said, "No wonder that girl could come back from the dead. It's because of the miraculous effect of the spirit recovery pill." Duanmu Bai, Elderly, Lu Liangkai and the others all nodded, their expressions filled with endless yearning. "Big brother Fatty, what is a spirit recovery pill?" Nie Yuro rubbed her little face and tugged at Jean de Bao, asking in a low voice. Nie Yuro, Jean de Bao, Qiu Linger and the others had been watching the competition. The scene of Tang Yuyu coming back from the dead was simply too dazzling. Jean de Bao swallowed hard and said, "It's just a spirit pill." "Then can Big Brother Nie Tian refine it?" Nie Yuro asked. Jean de Bao was speechless. The spirit recovery pill was a rank 7 spirit pill. If Nie Tian could refine it, then all the alchemists in the Alchemists Guild would have to find a block of tofu and kill themselves. Yes. But Jean de Bao looked at Nie Yuro's admiring expression and nodded honestly, causing Qiu Ling to frown. In the dojo, Nie Tian saw everyone's reaction and thought to himself, sigh. How ignorant. The spirit recovery pill has nothing to do with Tang Yuyu coming back from the dead. It's because she's from the Hidden Soul Clan, one of the 3 wonders of the demon realm. But then again, Nie Tian could only keep his thoughts to himself. If people found out that Tang Yuyu was from the demon race, the whole dojo would really explode. The demon race would definitely be more explosive than the assassins from the Lin Xian Tian Pavilion. Nie Tian smiled inwardly. The spirit recovery pill wasn't wasted. At least it gave Tang Yuyu an excuse to come back from the dead. Nie Tian knew very well that no spirit pill of any rank could bring someone back from the dead. Even a rank 9 spirit pill couldn't bring someone back from the dead. A bunch of idiots. Even Demon Lord Corpse Luo from the chaotic original coffin couldn't stand it anymore. Meanwhile, Tang Xiao was still glaring at Tang 13 and growled, "Tang 13, I'm asking you a question. Why did you use the spirit recovery pill on an outsider?" Tang 13 looked up, his eyes filled with killing intent. Instead of answering Tang Xiao's question, he said in a cold voice, "Tang Xiao, you're dead." At that moment, Tang 13 saw through Tang Xiao's true nature. If Tang Xiao didn't see him as a little brother, why would he see him as a big brother? This time, Tang 13 would no longer be soft-hearted or cowardly. Nie Tian looked at Tang Xiao as well. He didn't bother to hide the killing intent on his face. He said in a cold voice, Tang Xiao, you're asking for it. If you can leave the dragon blood martial arts gathering alive, my name won't be Nie Tian. At this moment, Nie Tian had made up his mind to kill Tang Xiao. Regardless of whether Nie Tian could meet Tang Xiao or not, he couldn't let Tang Xiao leave the dragon blood martial arts gathering alive. Tang Hao, let me, your teacher, help you clean up the mess. Nie Tian sighed in his heart. The coldness in his eyes was obvious. Chapter 355. Tang 13, Nie Tian, do you think you can kill me with just 2 first-level giant spirit cultivators? Tang Xiao looked at Tang 13 and Nie Tian. Sensing their strong killing intent, he laughed out loud. Nie Tian and Tang 13 were both at the first layer of the giant spirit realm, while Tang Xiao was at the second layer of the true element realm. With the former two openly threatening the latter, anyone who heard it would feel powerless. Tang Xiao's identity was special. He was a direct descendant of the Tang family. With his identity, there were definitely Tang family secret guards protecting him from the outside of the martial field. Tang 13 also had secret guards beside her. When she took out the spirit recovery pill, the Tang family secret guard couldn't help but make a noise and almost appeared. Nie Tian estimated that even if Tang 13 and Tang Xiao met, it would not be a life or death battle. The Tang family secret guards hiding nearby would not allow such a thing to happen. And if Nie Tian and Tang Xiao fought, the Tang family secret guards would definitely make a move at the most crucial moment. But Nie Tian did not care about that. Let alone a few Tang family secret guards, even if Tang Hao came personally, he would take Tang Xiao's life. Nie Tian looked at Tang Xiao, who was still laughing wildly, as if he was looking at an idiot. Then, Nie Tian and Tang 13 turned around and left, no longer paying attention to Tang Xiao. My 13th brother, I'm waiting for you to kill me. Tang Xiao finally stopped laughing and shouted at Tang 13's back. Tang 13's face was expressionless. 2 ghost blades flashed in her eyes. The scene of Tang Yuyu coming back from the dead was too shocking. The entire dragon blood martial meet stopped because of it. After a long time, when everyone came back to their senses, the martial meet continued. Nie Tian returned to his martial stage. He had already finished 3 rounds of martial arts and won all 3. There were still 3 rounds left. His next opponent was a martial artist called Feng Lei, ranked 7th on the Southern Mountain Region's genius list. The two jumped up at the same time and landed on the martial stage at the same time. Feng Lei was a young martial artist in his late 20s. He had a full beard and gave off a very rough feeling. Nie Tian City Lord, please. Feng Lei's face sank when he saw that his opponent was Nie Tian. He immediately cupped his hands and spoke in a very polite manner. With the strength of a giant spirit level 6, you're worthy of my sword. Nie Tian merely swept a glance at Feng Lei and said indifferently, Nie Tian City Lord, what you're saying is... Feng Lei frowned slightly. He was a famous warrior in the South Mountain region, but in Nie Tian's eyes, he was only worth 1 sword strike. This made him feel a little embarrassed. However, he was interrupted by Nie Tian before he could finish his sentence. Make your move. Nie Tian didn't want to waste time and said cold. Feng Lei was stunned. In the next moment, he stopped hesitating and attacked brazenly with the intention of catching Nie Tian off guard. He was well aware that Nie Tian's strength was extremely strange and couldn't be estimated by an ordinary martial artist. Thus, he spared no effort in his first attack. Boom! Feng Lei circulated the Yuan meridians in his body with all his might. Surging Yuan qi gushed out and a stone man that was dozens of meters tall appeared behind him. The stone man's body was made of countless huge stones. It looked like a stone armor and emitted a fierce aura. Roar! The stone man let out a roar and stomped his feet hard. Immediately, the entire arena shook violently. The surrounding martial artists were amazed by the stone man's imposing aura. Feng Lei is the 7th strongest martial artist in the South Mountain region. His Yuan spirit is of the earth attribute, so his defense and attack are very strong. If Nie Tian City Lord wants to defeat him, I'm afraid he'll have to spend some effort. Yeah, look at the Stone Man's aura. One punch from him definitely has the power to split mountains and rivers. Nie Tian City Lord is going to show his true strength this time. Nie Tian listened to the discussion below, but he didn't even look at it. The absolute heaven slash appeared in his hand, and Yuan Qi gushed out. Immediately, sword Qi overflowed from the tip of the sword and forcefully dispersed the Stone Man's aura. Stone-crushing palm. In the next moment, Feng Lei roared. The Stone Man put his palms together and slashed down fiercely. Suddenly, a visible wind blade blasted out and attacked Nie Tian. Good. Proud sword frenzy. Nie Tian wasn't afraid at all. Instead, he smiled faintly and stabbed upward with the absolute heaven slash. Vigorous sword Qi whistled out and surging sword rays soared into the sky like raging waves. Boom! In the next moment, the shocking sword rays drowned out the wind blades and collided with the Stone Man's palms. Bang! With a muffled sound, the Stone Man was hit and immediately disappeared. Then, Feng Lei flew backward like a kite with a broken string. He landed heavily below the arena and created a deep pit. On the high platform, Duanmu, Bai, and the others felt a chill in their hearts when they saw this scene. Nie Tian's strength was simply too strange. The fact that he could shatter Feng Lei's Titan true form with a single sword strike was simply unbelievable. Old Li shook his head slightly and said in shock, Nie Tian City Lord's sword heart is the strongest that this old man has ever seen. Perhaps many swordsmen with sword intent can't compare to his sword heart. Duanmu Bai nodded silently and thought in his heart, I thought that Lu Er's 8 Extreme's sword heart was strong enough. But compared to Nie Tian's sword heart, it's much weaker. That martial artist's strength was at the 6th level of the giant spirit realm, and he had even activated his giant spirit true body. Even so, he still couldn't block Nie Tian's sword. The power of his sword heart is incredible. Duanmu Bai and Old Li didn't know that Nie Tian was an unprecedented swordsman with 2 sword hearts. Moreover, his proud sword heart and star spirit sword heart were completely comparable to the top sword heart. In addition, the proud sword heart and star spirit sword heart had a mutual enhancement effect. That was why the power of his sword was so terrifying. Currently, Nie Tian's strength was only at the 1st layer of the giant spirit true body. If his strength reached the peak 9th layer of the Heavenly Emperor in his previous life, who knew how powerful he would be? Feng Lei was knocked off the arena by Nie Tian's sword and was heavily injured. He only crawled up after a long time and looked at Nie Tian with deep fear in his eyes. At this time, a figure appeared at the side of the arena. It was a handsome young man in his 20s with sword-like brows and starry eyes. Nie Tian City Lord, a very arrogant sword. I wonder if I can receive your sword? The young man looked at Nie Tian and said indifferently. Although there was a faint smile on his face, that provocative intent was very strong. Nie Tian recognized the young man in front of him. He was the other expert in his group, Long Sky. Long Sky had once defeated Ding Yifan in a single move. Thus, it attracted Nie Tian's attention. Perhaps you can receive my sword, but… Nie Tian was slightly shocked when he sensed that Long Sky was actually at the 9th layer of the giant spirit true body. However, he said indifferently, you definitely won't be able to receive a single move from me. Is that so? Long Sky raised his brows in disapproval. When Dongfang Du saw this scene, his heart was already blooming with joy. He was also in the same group as Nie Tian and naturally knew that he wasn't a match for Nie Tian. Therefore, he hoped that Nie Tian would encounter Long Sky first and defeat him. Then, he would have a chance to advance to the top 16. Let's wait and see. Nie Tian smiled faintly as he leaped off the arena. A moment later, Nie Tian's next battle began. Chapter 356. Nye Tian leaped up and landed on the stage. Nye Tian City Lord. Long Sky landed on the stage almost at the same time as Nye Tian. He looked at Nye Tian with a hint of disdain and said lightly, "I didn't expect that the promise of one move between us would be fulfilled so quickly. I'm very curious, how will Nye Tian City Lord defeat me in one move?" Nye Tian had just said that Long Sky would not be able to take one move from him. He really didn't expect that the time to prove this statement would come so soon. Nye Tian smiled lightly, but his face darkened in the next instant. He said, "This city lord has always been a man of his word. I only need one move to defeat you." "Is that so?" Long Sky smiled faintly, full of provocation. At this time, the duel between the two had attracted many people's attention. Nye Tian's name was extremely famous, and his every move could attract the attention of countless people. Long Sky looked at Nye Tian and said in his heart, "Nye Tian, I've watched all your previous battles carefully. Isn't your sword mastery what you're most proud of? I saw very clearly the sword move you used to defeat Feng Lei just now. It's almost your limit. It's impossible to defeat me with such a powerful sword move." Nye Tian paid a lot of attention to Long Sky, and the latter paid even more attention to him. Long Sky had studied all of Nye Tian's previous battles, and he could basically conclude that the power of Nye Tian's sword move was at most able to defeat a warrior of the 8th level of the Giant Soul Realm. It was impossible to defeat him, Long Sky, with just a sharp sword move. Long Sky's strength was at the 9th level of the Giant Soul Realm, and he had not revealed his true strength yet. As for his true identity, it was likely that none of the warriors present knew about it. This time, Long Sky had come to the Nanshan region to participate in the Dragon Blood Martial Meet, aiming to be the champion. However, up until now, Long Sky had discovered that the Dragon Blood Martial Association had many experts, far exceeding his expectations. Zhang Xiaoyi, who had the Battle Cloud Tyrant body, Tang 13, who had the Ghost Eye, Tang Xiao, who had the strength of the second-tier True Element, Rui Qianyu, Tong Fu, and the Grey Wolf Killer were all worthy of Dragon Sky's attention. However, these people were still not enough to make Long Haotian fear them. Among all the opponents, there were two that Long Haotian could not see through. One was Nye Tian, and the other was the youth with a pair of crimson eyes. What was even stranger was that both Nye Tian and the scarlet-eyed youth were only at the 1st level of the giant spirit realm. This made Dragon Sky even more curious about the two of them. The scarlet-eyed youth that Dragon Sky was paying attention to was none other than the Doomsday Flame, Mo10. Perhaps the following martial contest would be troublesome, but Dragon Sky was still very confident in himself. He thought to himself, "I, Dragon Sky, have come to the Nanshan region, and since I have participated in the Dragon Blood Martial Meet, I must become the champion. If I can't even take down a mere Martial Meet champion, when I get back, I will make those freaks shit their pants with laughter." Even in this battle against Nye Tian, Dragon Sky did not plan to reveal his true strength. In his opinion, Nye Tian was not qualified to be his ultimate opponent. Nye Tian was also looking at Dragon Sky, his brows slightly furrowed. He was surprised. This guy is so strong, he shouldn't be a nobody. But the martial artists outside don't seem to know him, it's a little strange. Dragon Sky looked only 20 years old, but his strength was already at the 9th level of the giant spirit realm. With this kind of talent, he would definitely be in the top 3 of the genius ranking in any of the 3,000 small worlds. But the martial artists outside obviously didn't know Dragon Sky, and this guy obviously didn't come from Sumi Ling City. With this speculation, Dragon Sky's background was a little strange. Could he be a disciple of some hidden family? Nye Tian thought to himself. Dragon Sky looked at Nye Tian, and actually saw through the latter's thoughts. He said directly, "Nye Tian City Lord, don't guess blindly. You will never be able to guess my background, and knowing my background is not a good thing for you." "Is that so?" Nie Tian smiled slightly, but the suspicion in his heart grew heavier. Dragon Sky nodded slightly, as if thinking for a moment, and said, "The force I belong to is not something you can afford to provoke. Even if you have a force like the Qianquan Palace by your side, I don't care. Or even, you don't even care about the 4 big families, right?" Before Dragon Sky finished, Nie Tian interrupted him and said for him. Dragon Sky raised his eyebrows, and his eyes were full of confidence. He nodded and said, "Yes." Nie Tian was a little surprised and suddenly said, "Dragon Sky, I already know your background." "Oh." Dragon Sky deliberately opened his mouth wide, and curiously waited for Nie Tian to continue. Nie Tian didn't say it out loud. Instead, he sent a voice transmission to Dragon Sky and said 3 words, "Heaven Burial Society." Hearing these 3 words, Dragon Sky's expression suddenly changed, and then returned to normal. He smiled and said, Nie Tian City Lord really knows how to joke. Although Dragon Sky's surprised expression disappeared in a flash, Nie Tian caught it perfectly. Right now, Nie Tian was very sure that Dragon Sky was definitely from Heaven Burial Society. Heaven Burial Society, this name, Nie Tian had only heard of it once from Gu Yi, and then he conveniently remembered it. At that time, when Nie Tian asked Gu Yi about the Death God Order, Gu Yi once said that Ling Xian Tian Pavilion was the 3rd dark force in the 3,000 small world. The first and second dark forces were the Land of Bloody Massacre and Heaven Burial Society. Heaven Burial Society was an organization that was even more terrifying and mysterious than Ling Xian Tian Pavilion. Although Gu Yi only mentioned it briefly, based on its ranking, it was definitely an organization that was not inferior to Ling Xian Tian Pavilion. At that time, Nie Tian had memorized the name. Then, seeing that Long Haotian was acting so mysteriously, he had made a random guess. Who would have thought that he actually guessed correctly? Nie Tian's guess was right. Dragon Sky was from Heaven Burial Society. Since Heaven Burial Society was even more terrifying than Ling Xian Tian Pavilion, they naturally would not place Qianquan Palace in their eyes. And Dragon Sky said that he did not even fear the 4 great families. It seemed that he was not speaking carelessly. I didn't expect that a small dragon blood martial gathering would not only bring people from the other 3 domains, but also people from Sumi Spiritual Capital, and even people from Ling Xian Tian Pavilion and Heaven Burial Society. This is really lively. Nie Tian's mouth twitched as he said in his heart. Originally, he thought that with a great Buddha like Qianquan Palace presiding over the dragon blood martial gathering, it would definitely intimidate the participating martial artists. He did not expect that the people who came were all great gods, and even the great Buddha could not suppress them. Although Dragon Sky's expression was calm, but his heart was already in a perilous state. He had never expected that a few casual words from him would allow Nie Tian to figure out his identity. This was too King ridiculous. Could it be that Nie Tian could see through people's hearts? After a short while, Dragon Sky barely managed to calm down and said, Nie Tian City Lord, the joke is over. Next, let me experience the power of one move of yours. As his voice fell, a black dragon head broadsword appeared in Dragon Sky's hand, and a faint aura faintly revolved around the blade. Chapter 357. Saber Intent. It was definitely Saber Intent. Sensing the saber aura on Long Sky's dragon-headed saber again, Nie Tian was even more certain of his guess. He had not expected Long Sky to be a Saber Intent saber user at such a young age. Saber Intent to a saber user was the sword intent of a swordsman. Long Sky had reached the level of Saber Intent at the age of 20. His talent in the way of the saber was truly rare. Just based on this, Nie Tian estimated that his strength was not below the Grey Wolf Assassin. The Grey Wolf Assassin was a sword-intent swordsman, while Long Sky was a saber-intent saber user. The saber was the head of all weapons, and the sword was the king of all weapons. Although the saber and the sword were 2 different weapons, their cultivation paths were the same. Therefore, a sword-intent swordsman and a saber-intent saber user were evenly matched. What? Even Nye Tion's city lord is surprised? Seeing Nye Tion's shocked reaction, the disdain in Long Sky's tone intensified, and at the same time, a thick killing intent appeared in his eyes. Long Sky's performance at the Dragon Blood Martial Gathering was not dazzling, and was only average. He did not want to attract attention, so he showed mercy to his opponent, and did not kill. Originally, he did not want to kill Nye Tion, and would at least wait until after the top 16. But Nye Tion had guessed his identity, so he had to act earlier. As expected, you really are from the Heaven Burial Association. Sensing the killing intent in Long Haotian's eyes, Nye Tion was even more certain of his speculation. Then, he said in a low voice, Long Haotian, as I said just now, you won't be able to take a single strike from me. Now that statement is still valid. Arrogant. Long Sky frowned slightly, and his expression darkened. He did not want to waste his breath. The dragon-head tyrant saber in his hand let out a saber cry, and released the wildest saber aura. It instantly filled the entire arena, and like a thick fog, it attacked Nye Tion. Very cautious. Nye Tion smiled and thought to himself, Long Sky, this time, you lost because of your cautiousness. Long Sky did not choose to attack directly. Clearly, he feared Nye Tion's strength and wanted to use Saber Chi to test him. However, Nye Tion wouldn't give him the chance to test the waters. Sky Fiend Chop. In the next instant, Nye Tion's body, which was originally devoid of any yuan energy, suddenly erupted with a violent surge of energy. The astral soul steel in the primal chaos origin coffin sensed the energy, and an astral soul surged out. In an instant, boundless star energy surged toward him like surging heat waves. The power of the stars was the origin of power. It had the power to suppress almost all kinds of powers. As soon as the power of the stars appeared, Long Sky's blade chi was immediately dispersed. Bam! Immediately after, Nye Tion fiercely stomped his foot, and he actually left a clear footprint on the martial stage. Sky-piercing sword. Nye Tion was dozens of meters in the air, and the sky-piercing sword appeared in his hand. The sword chi surged, and when the sword slashed down, a huge crescent blade appeared in the sky, and with the strongest killing intent, it blasted toward Long Sky. Long Haotian was caught unprepared by the sudden scene. He didn't expect that Nye Tion would be so desperate, and he didn't spare any time to adapt at all. Goodbye! Nye Tion was still in the air, but the corners of his mouth were raised in a relaxed manner. His sword was a combination of the second-rank Astral Soul, Sky Fiend Chop, and the strongest of the three intermediate styles of the AO sword technique, Sky-Piercing Sword. Even a true energy realm martial artist would be seriously injured if he was hit by it head-on. Even if he didn't die, he would at least lose a layer of skin. At this moment, all the onlookers were tense, and their eyes were wide open. They didn't want to miss any exciting scene. The people on the high platform also had their hearts in their throats, and they didn't know what would happen in the next moment. No one expected that Nye Tion's first move would be a ruthless one. In everyone's opinion, it would be difficult for Long Sky to resist this move. At this critical moment, Long Sky didn't panic. He raised the dragon head overbearing saber high, and the saber essence whistled out, but it didn't attack. Instead, it formed a layer of saber essence around his body. The saber essence was formed by highly condensed saber chi, and it could change its shape at will. It was very flexible. Do you want to block this attack with just a layer of saber essence? Naive. Nye Tion saw Long Sky's action and smiled faintly. But the next moment, before his smile ended, it directly became stiff. Swish, swish, swish. Suddenly, the dragon head overbearing saber split into countless shadow clones, and instantly formed a layer of shadow armor, protecting Long Sky. Boom! The crescent moon's sword slammed down like a mountain crashing down from the top of a mountain. There was an abrupt explosion, as if a mountain was collapsing. The crescent blade and the shadow armor collided fiercely. With the point of collision as the center, a visible energy wave surged out and spread in all directions. The warriors within a few hundred meters of the martial arts arena felt a strong impact at the same time, and the entire ground was set off by the impact of the wave of air. Crack! Then, the shadow armor finally couldn't withstand the fierce bombardment, and a spider web-like crack appeared on it. The next moment, with a bang, it directly collapsed. Long Sky screamed, and his figure directly flew out. Boom! At the same time that he was sent flying, a loud bang resounded and the arena collapsed. Crushed stones flew in all directions like hidden weapons. Puff! After Long Sky landed on the ground, he stood steadily. His face was red, and his chest was extremely stuffy. Immediately, he spat out a mouthful of blood. After spitting out a mouthful of extravasated blood, Long Sky looked a lot better. His clothes were all tattered, and he looked extremely embarrassed, but his body was intact, and he didn't suffer any serious injuries. Even though the blade shadow armor hadn't been able to withstand Nie Tian's heaven-slaughtering slash, it had blocked most of the impact, allowing Long Haotian to stand unscathed. Nie Tian's figure floated down from the sky, looked at the angry Long Sky, and said indifferently, "One move, you lost." That's right, although Long Sky didn't have a hand, he was knocked out of the martial arts arena by Nie Tian with one move. Therefore, in this martial arts duel, he lost very cleanly and cleanly. Long Sky's eyes were bloodshot as he stared at Nie Tian. He wanted to say something, but his chest felt extremely stuffy, and he couldn't speak. He was too cautious, and a little too fearful of Nie Tian. Instead, he was defeated by Nie Tian in a single move. This martial arts duel, there was only one word to describe it: he lost unjustly. Nie Tian's face was relaxed, but his heart was filled with shock. That move just now was a waste of a second-level astral soul, Sky Killing Cut. Not only that, with the might of the sky-piercing sword, he could barely break through Long Sky's shadow armor. It was truly a failure. Nie Tian originally thought that even if he couldn't kill Long Sky with this move, he would at least be able to injure him severely. Never in his wildest dreams did he expect that Long Sky would be able to withstand it. Without a doubt, Long Sky's strength was above Nie Tian's expectations, and Nie Tian could sense that Long Sky's strength was far from being revealed. His defeat just now was because Nie Tian had taken advantage of a loophole. Chapter 358. Nie Tian, let's wait and see. Long Sky's face was filled with hatred, the veins on his forehead were bulging, but there was nothing he could do to Nie Tian. With that, Long Sky angrily turned and left. The people from the Heaven Burial Society are indeed not simple. Nie Tian looked at Long Sky's back, and sighed lightly in his heart. The dragon blood martial meet this time was even more complicated than Nie Tian had imagined. The people from the other three regions, the people from Sumi Spirit Capital, the people from the Lingxian Heavenly Pavilion, the people from the Heaven Burial Society, and the demonic fire, no matter how he thought about it, it gave him a headache. He originally thought that 3 second-level star souls and 1 third-level star soul would be enough, but from the looks of it, it was completely insufficient. Nie Tian could only say that it would be difficult to become the champion of the martial meet. The battle between Nie Tian and Long Sky had once again blinded the eyes of everyone present. Although it was only a single move that ended the battle, but that kind of aura, that kind of deterrence, caused people to tremble in fear, and was engraved in their bones. Nie Tian walked down the stage, quietly waiting for his last battle. He had already won 5 rounds in a row, and if he won one more, he would be able to obtain the full score of 6, and firmly enter the top 16. Dongfang Du, who was at the side, had personally witnessed the battle between Nie Tian and Long Sky. His small face was as white as paper, and he did not recover for a long time. Just now, Nye Tion's sword, that kind of aura, caused him to tremble. If he was Long Sky, he would definitely be a corpse by now. Heavens, Mother Earth, please bless me, don't let me meet Nye Tion. Dongfang Du prayed in his heart, and at a certain moment, his gaze landed on Long Sky's figure, and he prayed again, also don't meet Long Sky. But before Dongfang Du's prayers had even ended, the judge's voice sounded out. First group, 29th match, number 14 versus number 63. Number 63. Dongfang Du was shocked when he heard the name. It's me. Nye Tion glanced at Dongfang Du and said with a smile, Number 14, it's me. Dongfang Du looked at the smiling face of Nye Tion, and his face suddenly became gloomy. What he feared had come true. He wanted to cry but had no tears. I admit defeat. Without waiting for Nye Tion to walk onto the stage, Dongfang Du decisively admitted defeat without hesitation. The scene of Nye Tion blasting long into the sky was still fresh in his mind. If he were to have a duel with Nye Tion now, wouldn't that be sending him to his death? Dongfang Du directly admitted defeat. This result was within Nye Tion's expectations, so he was not surprised. Because of Dongfang Du's surrender, Nye Tion ended his 6 matches. He won all 6 matches and entered the top 16 without any suspense. After that, Nye Tion paid attention to the other matches on the stage, but there were no outstanding duels. After a while, the first group's matches were all over. Without a doubt, Nye Tion ranked first with a full score of 6. But at this time, there was an awkward situation. Long Sky and Dongfang Du both had the same score, 5 points, and they were tied for second place. Both of them had won 5 matches and lost 1, and both of their losses were to Nye Tion. Both of you have the same score. You need to fight another match to decide who will enter the top 16. The judge walked over and said lightly. Long Sky nodded lightly, looking very relaxed. In this group, the only person that he was wary of was Nye Tion. As for Dongfang Du, he was not worthy of his attention. But Dongfang Du was in a dilemma. His brain was spinning rapidly as he pondered if he should fight Long Sky. Dongfang Du had already witnessed Long Sky's strength. Although he lost to Nye Tion, there was an element of surprise in it. Dongfang Du admitted that he was no match for Long Sky. But he was only 1 step away from the top 16. Once he entered the top 16, he would be able to obtain a lot of dragon bloodstones. Long Haotian is at the 9th level of the giant spirit realm, and so am I. Even if his saber chi is powerful, my dragon form divine transformation is no joke. Why can't I give it a try? Dongfang Du thought to himself as a strange light flashed in his eyes. In the end, his wishful thinking prevailed. Dongfang Du decided to give it a try. I'll use the forbidden technique of the transforming god technique, dragon form divine transformation, to fight with Long Haotian. If I can't win, I'll immediately admit defeat, Dongfang Du said in his heart. Then, he nodded to the referee, indicating that he was willing to fight with Long Haotian. Divine Dragon Transformation was the forbidden move of the transforming god art. Dongfang Du had already used it at the ancient Bloody Tomb. It was extremely powerful. Fortunately, Nye Tion had 2 astral souls at that time, which allowed him to barely defeat Dongfang Du. In fact, Dongfang Du was too timid and afraid. With his 9th level Titan strength, it would not be easy for Nye Tion to defeat him. At the very least, Nye Tion would have to pay the price of a second-rank astral soul. It could only be said that Dongfang Du's defeat at the ancient Bloody Tomb by Nye Tion had left a shadow in his heart. The current Dongfang Du would be afraid of Nye Tion the moment he saw him. Immediately, Long Sky and Dongfang Du stepped onto the stage. Brother Long, please show some mercy. Dongfang Du licked his chapped lips and clasped his hands as he looked at Long Sky's imposing manner. Nye Tion looked at the wretched Dongfang Du, but he did not laugh. Instead, he thought to himself, another trick to feign weakness. Dongfang Du, You are underestimating Long Sky too much. Feigning weakness was Dongfang Du's usual trick. Back at the ancient bloody tomb, he had feigned weakness in an attempt to numb Nie Tian, but it was seen through by the latter. Now that he was using the same trick on Long Sky, no one knew what the result would be. However, Nie Tian estimated that Long Sky was too strong. Even if he underestimated his opponent, he would still be able to win easily. Cut the crap. Let's fight. Long Sky was defeated by Nie Tian with one strike, and he was still angry. He said cold, Dongfang Du, I only need one strike to defeat you. Dongfang Du wasn't angry at all. Instead, he smiled timidly and said, Brother Long, of course I believe you. However, the next second before Dongfang Du finished his sentence, he suddenly shouted, I, Dongfang Du, will not be defeated that easily. Then, something strange happened. Dongfang Du suddenly jumped into the air, and his body started to change in the air. His body suddenly expanded, and in an instant, it was dozens of times bigger than before. His clothes were torn apart, and huge black scales appeared on his skin. They looked like black armor, layer after layer, covering his entire body. His limbs seemed to grow out of his body, and they turned into huge dragon claws. His face turned into a huge dragon head, and there were 2 black dragon horns on the top of his head. In the blink of an eye, Dongfang Du changed from a human to a 30-meter-long black dragon in the air. In order to get more dragon bloodstones, Dongfang Du was going all out. The dragon form transformation was a forbidden technique of the transforming god spell. Now that Dongfang Du used it in front of so many people, it immediately attracted everyone's attention. Dragon form transformation, Dongfang Du, I don't think you can withstand one strike from Long Sky. Nie Tian looked at the black dragon in the air and frowned. Chapter 359. Everyone looked at the black dragon in the air with a horrified expression. Is this the forbidden move of the transformation god sect, dragon transformation? It must be. Dongfang Du hid his strength well. I didn't expect him to have such a terrifying trump card. I'm afraid Dragon Sky is going to lose. Not necessarily. Dragon Sky withstood Nie Tian City Lord's attack just now and was not injured. Maybe he can fight the Black Dragon. Everyone whispered. Obviously, they did not see Dragon Sky's true strength. Nie Tian estimated that with Dragon Sky's strength, he could seriously injure Dongfang Du or even kill him with one slash. The power of a slash from a saber intent user was definitely not inferior to a true energy realm martial artist. At this time, the other martial artists on the arena came over, ready to enjoy the battle. Dragon-shaped soul transformation? Zhang Xiaoi, the #1 genius of the Battle Cloud sect in 1,000 years, looked up at the black dragon. There was no fear in her eyes, but contempt. She murmured, just so. Zhang Xiaoi was someone with an advanced Earth-level heaven spirit constitution. Although the black dragon was strong, it could not fight back at all in front of her. Not far away from Zhang Xiaoi, a dwarf with a thick beard appeared. It was Tong Fu. Tong Fu looked at the black dragon with the same contempt in his eyes. He chuckled. Dragon transformation? Forbidden move? Can it take a hit from me? The hammer of destruction, the strongest and most ferocious spirit. Tong Fu had almost killed Gong Feiyu with one hit. At that time, he was still in the giant spirit realm. Now, he had advanced to the true energy realm. Therefore, even if Dongfang Du was in the state of dragon transformation, it would be difficult for him to take a hit from Tong Fu. Upon hearing Tong Fu's words, Zhang Xiaoi couldn't help but glance at the latter and thought to herself, this little guy is the one Nie Tian told me to pay attention to. I'm also very curious about how strong he is. Although Zhang Xiaoi did not take Nie Tian's warning to heart, she still paid attention to Tong Fu from time to time. Unfortunately, the opponents that the latter met were too weak, and he did not reveal his true strength at all. The other experts on the martial arts field also came out one after another. At this time, the 8 groups had basically finished their matches and were waiting to announce the top 16. Long Sky and Dongfang Du had the same number of points, so they had an extra match. Roar! The giant black dragon raised its head to the sky and let out a roar. That kind of deafening aura was terrifying. Dongfang Du originally had the strength of a 9th-level giant spirit. After dragon transformation, whether it was defense or attack power, they were comparable to a 1st-level true essence martial artist. Unfortunately, such strength was still too weak against Dragon Sky. On the high platform, everyone revealed a look of surprise. Dragon-shaped soul transformation stage is indeed monstrous. Duanmu Bai couldn't help but exclaim. Yes. Elderly nodded slightly and said, unfortunately, Dongfang Du's strength is too weak, and he cannot display the true power of the dragon-shaped soul transformation stage. If Dongfang Yu used this technique, it would be even more terrifying. The dragon-shaped soul transformation stage was the forbidden technique of the soul transformation stage. The stronger the martial artist, the more power they could display, and the increase in combat strength would be doubled. Although Dongfang Du had the strength of a 9th-level giant spirit, he was still far from being able to display the full power of the dragon-shaped soul transformation stage. Roar! On the martial arts field, the giant black dragon roared angrily again. Immediately after, its giant body rolled and swept up the scattered clouds in all directions. With the momentum of a thunderbolt, it swooped down towards Long Sky. Little Loach, die! Facing Dongfang Du's life-risking attack, Long Sky was not the slightest bit afraid. The corner of his mouth slightly curled up, and his expression was relaxed. Seeing Dongfang Du charging down, Nie Tian shook his head and mumbled in his heart, Dongfang Du, you've underestimated Long Sky. He's from the Heaven Burial Association, and he's probably here for the champion of the martial gathering. How could he lose to a little worm like you? Dragon's Head Tyrant Blade, Reverse Slaying Dragon Slash. Long Sky roared angrily and his aura skyrocketed. Yuan force surged out from his body, and the Dragon's Head Tyrant Blade revealed its true form for the first time. It was 40 meters long and a black aura lingered around it, giving off an oppressive feeling. Boom! The Dragon Head Tyrant Saber slashed out, and a huge saber chi condensed into a saber light that was dozens of meters long. Immediately, the saber chi overflowed in all directions, causing the spectators to feel a suffocating pressure. The saber chi of a saber-intent saber wielder was unimaginably strong and mighty. When the blade aura soared into the sky, the black dragon let out a blood-curdling scream. As the blade aura approached, the fear in the dragon's eyes became more and more obvious, almost turning into despair. When Long Sky's Dragon's Head Tyrant Blade revealed its true form, Dongfang Du already felt that something was wrong, but it was already too late. He no longer had the chance to retreat. In the next moment, the most horrifying and bloody scene appeared. Bang! The blade aura shocked the heavens, and under the blade aura, the sky was filled with blood. The black dragon didn't even have the slightest chance to resist, and was directly split in half by the terrifying blade aura. Fresh blood rained down like a storm, and immediately, an extremely bloody smell filled the air. After the black dragon landed on the ground, it returned to its human form, but from its forehead to its lower abdomen, it was split in half. Long Sky kept the Dragon's Head Tyrant Blade, and without looking at Dongfang Du, he elegantly jumped off the stage. Hiss! After a long time, everyone gasped and looked at Long Haotian with deep fear in their eyes. Who would have thought that the young sect leader of the God Transformation sect, the second genius on the Southern Mountain Domain's genius ranking, would be killed like a chicken? This scene was too bloody, too ruthless, and too inconceivable. A dragon-slaying saber. It really was a dragon-slaying saber. Young master! Master! A moment later, 2 cries were heard and 2 figures appeared. Of the 2 figures, Nie Tian only recognized one, and that was Chu Shifeng. The other was a middle-aged man, probably from the God Transformation sect. Of course, Chu Shifeng wasn't reluctant to leave Dongfang-du, but because if Dongfang-du died, he wouldn't be able to live either. His body was poisoned by the blood of emerald silver needles. Without Dongfang-du's blood, he could live for another 3 days at most. The other middle-aged man was none other than the leader of the Green Dragon Hall of the God Transformation sect, Xiefeng. Xiefeng wasn't just here to watch the battle, he was also responsible for Dongfang-du's safety. Now that Dongfang-du had died in front of him, he wanted to cry but no tears came out. With the ruthlessness of the sect leader of the God Transformation sect, Dongfang-yu, there was no way she would let him go. Xiefeng wanted to rush up and avenge Dongfang-du, but at some point, his eyes glanced at the people on the stage. His pupils constricted and he shrank his head back. If he were to make a move against Long Haotian now, that would be openly breaking the rules of the Dragon Blood Martial Group. How could Duanmu Bai, Old Li, and even Zhao Kuo and the others, who were on the high platform, watch with folded arms? Especially Duanmu Bai, who was an ally of Tianluo City. Thinking up to this point, Xiefeng finally endured it. He looked at Long Haotian, and his heart was sinister. Stinking brat, you better die in the dragon blood martial meat. Otherwise, once the martial meat ends, I will definitely chop off your dog head. Bringing Long Sky's head back was Xiefeng's only chance of survival. Other than that, he had no other choice. Chapter 360. Nie Tian noticed Xiefeng's reaction from afar and immediately guessed that Xiefeng was from the deity transformation sect. Inwardly, Nie Tian sneered. Idiot, you have no idea who Long Haotian is. You want to kill him? You're courting death. Luckily, Xiefeng held back and didn't attack. Otherwise, he would be a corpse by now. If Xiefeng attacked just now, there would be no need for Duanmu, Elder Baili, and the others to stop him. The Heaven Burial Society, hidden outside the dojo, would have torn him into pieces. Nie Tian guessed that Long Sky was a young master in the Heaven Burial Society. He wouldn't come out alone. There must be experts protecting him in secret. The Heaven Burial Society was a force even more terrifying than the Ling Xian Heaven Pavilion. Why would they be afraid of a mere god transformation sect? At this moment, Zhan Xiaoi, Tong Fu, and the others looked at Long Sky with shock. They didn't expect Long Sky to be so powerful. He was definitely a formidable opponent. Zhan Xiaoi and Tong Fu were confident that they could kill Dongfang-du in his dragonized state, but they might not be able to do it as easily as Long Sky. Nie Tian took a glance at Long Haotian before walking to Zhan Xiaoi and Tong Fu's side and saying, "You'd better be careful if you run into him. He hasn't revealed his true strength yet." Zhan Xiaoi and Tong Fu were stunned. That wasn't Long Sky's true strength? Killing Dongfang-du with one slash wasn't Long Sky's true strength? Just how powerful was he? Nie Tian nodded and didn't say anything else. He had unintentionally noticed that Long Haotian's arms seemed to be different. His left arm seemed to be thicker than his right. Nie Tian tried to sense the strength in Long Haotian's left arm, and the result shocked him. There seemed to be an extremely terrifying power hidden in Long Haotian's left arm. Nie Tian could sense that if this power was released, it would definitely be earth-shattering. Knowing this, Dragon Sky's strength rose to another level in Nie Tian's eyes. After a while, all 8 groups finished their matches. The top 16 of the Dragon Blood Martial Group was fresh out. Group 1, Nie Tian, Long Sky. Second group, Tong Fu, Mo Shi. Group 3, Mr. Z, Rui Qianyu. Fourth group, Su Shubin, Qing Xian'er. Group 5, Tang 13, Gu Qilin. Group 6, Zhan Xiaoi, Viscount Su. Group 7, Qiu Shaokong, Ko Tianxing. Group 8, Tang Xiao, Xianyuan Miao. There were a few among them that Nie Tian hadn't noticed before. Su Shubin, Ko Tianxing, and Xianyuan Miao were all in the giant spirit realm. Su Shubin and Xianyuan Miao were in the top 10 of the Southern Mountain Domain's genius ranking, while Ko Tianxing was from the North Sea and a member of the Battle Cloud sect. He was Zhang Xiaoyi's companion. These people were strong and had overcome all obstacles along the way to reach the top 16. It was not easy. Among them, Su Shubin had defeated Duanmu Lu, Ko Tianxing had defeated Ding Yifan, and Xianyuan Miao had defeated the 12th-ranked genius of the Southern Mountain Domain. And Viscount Su was none other than the assassin from the Lin Xian Heaven Pavilion. The competition for the top 16 was even crueler. It was a one-round elimination system. The top 16 would face each other randomly. The winner would advance and the loser would be eliminated. Therefore, in the following matches, not only was strength important, luck was also very important. Before the matches officially began, Nie Tian went to the center of the dojo and spoke a few words with Gu Yi and Zhao Kuo before returning. Soon, the matches for the top 16 officially began. At this time, outside the dojo, 4 figures leaped high into the air. Bang! 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 4 figures descended from the sky and landed on the 4 largest arenas in the center of the dojo. At the same time, Zhao Kuo's figure leaped up from the high platform and appeared in the sky above the dojo. Everyone, I'm the 7th commander of the Alchemist Association's Dan Wu Hall, Zhao Kuo. The following matches for the top 16 will be judged by the 4 captains of the Dan Wu Hall. Zhao Kuo's voice sounded like thunder. As he spoke, he swept his gaze across the entire dojo. Instantly, a wave of pressure spread out. In the Dragonblood martial meet, everyone is fighting for Dragonblood, not life. Therefore, I hope that no bloodshed will occur as much as possible. However, Zhao Kuo's loud voice suddenly rose as he said, "If life and death is really decided on the arena, this commander does not wish for others to interfere. On the arena, life and death is up to the heavens. Absolutely no one is allowed to interfere. If anyone violates the rules of the martial meet, don't blame this commander for being merciless." When Zhao Kuo shouted out these words, the people outside the dojo all felt a wave of fear. Especially those hidden experts from the great clans and powers. All of them frowned as they looked at Zhao Kuo with deep fear in their eyes. Since Zhao Kuo was the commander of the Dan Wu Hall, his strength was definitely not weak. Furthermore, his identity was even more extraordinary. Even the members of the 4 great clans might not dare to offend the commander of the Dan Wu Hall. After Zhao Kuo finished speaking, his gaze swept across the entire dojo and finally landed on Nie Tian. Then, he squeezed out a smile and nodded heavily. The corners of Nie Tian's mouth slightly curled up as he nodded as well. There was naturally a reason why Zhao Kuo suddenly ran out and shouted out these words before the matches of the top 16 began. Earlier, when Nie Tian went up to the high platform, he gave Zhao Kuo a promise. If he guaranteed that the martial meet would proceed normally, he would receive 10 drops of dragon blood. 10 drops of dragon blood was an extremely fatal temptation to Zhao Kuo. Moreover, the reason why Gu Yi asked him to appear at the Dragonblood martial meet was to prevent any accidents from happening. Therefore, Zhao Kuo agreed to Nie Tian's request without any hesitation. Hence, there was the current scene. Zhao Kuo's thoughts were still a little naive. His words didn't just represent himself, but also represented the alchemist guild behind him. If someone were to openly provoke the commander of the Dan Wu Hall, what was the difference between that and challenging the alchemist guild? Nie Tian wanted to make use of Zhao Kuo to deter the experts from the various powers outside the dojo. Those who were able to enter the top 16 were not ordinary people. There were definitely major powers behind them. If any accidents were to happen to these people later, it was hard to guarantee that those fellows hidden outside wouldn't make a move. But after Zhao Kuo's words, whether these people wanted to make a move or not, or whether they dared to make a move, they would need to think carefully. Next, the matches of the top 16 were about to begin. The 4 captains of the Dan Wu Hall were the judges, and all 4 of them were experts at the 9th level of the True Essence realm. The first round of the competition, 4 matches began at the same time. Dragonblood Martial Meet, matches of the top 16, first match, Nye Tian vs Su Ziju. Dragonblood Martial Meet, matches of the top 16, second match, Rui Qinyu vs Mr. Z. Dragonblood Martial Meet, matches of the top 16, third match, Tang 13 vs Gu Qilin. Dragonblood Martial Meet, matches of the top 16, fourth match, Zhan Xiaoyi vs Qiu Shaokong. 4 voices sounded out at almost the same time. Subsequently, 8 figures appeared on the 4 arenas at the same time.